Welcome to the fantasy audiobook, traveling through thousands of realms, starting from obtaining the 10 Marvel rings. Chapter 41. Rosen quickly entered the small courtyard. There were several men from the same village in the courtyard. They also had blood stains and wounds on their bodies. As soon as I entered the house, an old man came out. Everyone in the village calls this old man Uncle Kwejiao. Uncle Kwejiao is the doctor in the village. His medical skills are not very good and he can solve minor illnesses and injuries. Uncle Chase glanced at Rosen, shook his head and said, "Let's prepare for the funeral." The sister-in-law, who was being supported by servants from behind, fainted immediately when she heard Uncle Gigi's words. "Uncle Kwejiao, thank you for your hard work." Rosen handed Uncle Kwejiao a few pieces of broken silver. Entering the house, Rosen smelled the strong smell of blood. Luo Damu was lying on the bed, with bloodstains all over the floor and bed. There was a shocking wound running from his left shoulder to his abdomen. Luo Damu had lost too much blood and passed out in bed. Rosen glanced at the servants behind him. "You all get out. No one is allowed to come in without my shouting." After the servants exited the room, Rosen's palms glowed with green light. Palm magic. Under Rosen's treatment, Luo Damu's injuries gradually eased. Then Rosen began to bandage Luo Damu. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Rosen did not directly cure his eldest brother's injury completely, but just put him out of danger. Rosen walked out of the house and said to the servant, "Take my sister-in-law to the house to rest, and you can go buy some supplements and come back." Rosen looked at the farmers in the yard. "Uncle Daliang, tell me, what happened?" "Damu and we went to the town to buy this year's grain seeds. On the way back, we encountered a group of bandits. That group of bandits snatched away our grain seeds and chopped down Damu." "Are there bandits around here?" Rosen asked in surprise. Although this happened 30 years ago, Rosen remembered clearly that before he got married, he had already wiped out all the bandits nearby. It is unlikely that a new gang of bandits will emerge in a short period of time. "Do you know what banner they are using?" Rosen asked. "I don't know. I didn't hear what name they gave me, but the leader is a tall man with a big beard, black teeth, and looks like a military man." "I understand. Each of you will go to my house tomorrow to get some grain as a thank you gift for sending my eldest brother back." All the farmers thanked him one after another, but no one refused. Originally, their food and seeds were taken away, and they were already somewhat desperate. Now that Rosen is willing to give them grain seeds, they are naturally grateful. Rosen's face was extremely gloomy. He had regarded the Kaiyuan County area as his own. Now that a strange gang of bandits appeared, and most importantly, his eldest brother was injured, this matter could not be uncovered so easily. My sister-in-law also breathed a sigh of relief after learning that her man had recovered. However, Rosen has been investigating the bandits but knows nothing about them. Luo Damu's injury is getting better day by day. On this day, just after Luo Sen saw Luo Damu's injuries, he heard a report from his servants that a group of government servants came to the door. When Rosen came to the living room, the first thing he saw was the big black teeth. Rosen narrowed his eyes and looked at the group of government officials. "What do you have to do with these gentlemen?" "My county master said that there is a war with the Mongolian Yuan in the north, so the court wants to increase the poll tax. Each family has a head tax of 1,200 coins. Your family and your servants have a total of 35 people, which is 42 coins." Yachetu said. Rosen's eyes turned cold. Nowadays, an ordinary farmer's family can always afford money from a wealthy family, let alone 1,200 yuan per person. Even if the imperial court wanted to increase the head tax, it would only cost tens of cents per person. It was simply impossible to increase such an unreasonable tax amount. This is equivalent to that in modern society. If someone wants the whole country, everyone must pay 100,000 soft girl coins. Since it is the decree of the imperial court, Luo must abide by it, so please bring out the official documents of the imperial court. Rosen looked at the black-tooth officer and others with a smile. The expressions of all the officers all darkened, and the black-tooth officer stared at Rosen with a gloomy look. "Mr. Luo, this official document is of course at the Yamen. I was in a hurry when I came out today, so I didn't bring it with me. I'm really sorry. I can only ask you to get the official documents first so that I can pay the money according to the imperial court's decree." This time we have come all the way, more than 30 miles along the way. I'm afraid it would be bad for Mr. Luo to ask me to return empty-handed. Rosen sneered. These government officials thought that they were nouveau riche, so they dared to come to blackmail them. If they really dared to come up with such an outrageous official document, both the county magistrate and them will lose their heads. Returning empty-handed. That's right. If you can't produce the official document today, you will really return empty-handed. Rosen said coldly. Here comes someone. At this moment, a dozen servants came out holding sticks. Master Luo, what do you mean? What do you mean? If you can't give an explanation today, then all of you will leave an arm. Rosen said blankly. We are officials. Attacking us is tantamount to treason. Blacktooth shouted. Who said I attacked an official? I, Luo Mansion, broke into a group of criminals who wanted to defraud money. When they failed to defraud the money, they tried to rob them by force. My servant in Luo Mansion killed them on the spot. Luo Sen said sadly. The expressions of all the officers changed greatly, and Heachetu suppressed the fear in his heart. Master Luo, we are waiting for Meng Lang. We just want to get some money to drink. If Master Luo can let me go today, we will definitely repay him in the future. If it is useful, we can also. How do you feel about the convenience of exercise? A few days ago, my eldest brother encountered a thief 3 miles outside the village and was slashed. He is still lying on the bed. This year, all the grain in the field was also taken away. Rosen stared at the Blacktooth officer. Sure enough, the faces of the Blacktooth officer and all the officers all changed drastically. Looking at their expressions, Rosen roughly concluded that this matter must have something to do with them. Brothers, fight with him. Heya was about to draw the sword when Rosen pushed the handle back into the scabbard. Heya Cha-tu was stunned for a moment, and raised his head blankly, only to see Rosen reaching out and pressing on Heya Cha-tu's shoulder. With just such a gentle press, Heya Cha-tu's spine was directly crushed, and his whole body felt like lying on the ground like mud. Rosen looked calmly at the other officers. Kill them all. The servants were still a little hesitant. After all, they were just servants, not sold into slavery. Most of them are even from Luojia village. That is to say, the Luo family gave them a lot of money, and Rosen was unwilling to recruit outsiders, so he recruited them. Rosen's eyes were indifferent, and he could see the hesitation of these servants. Rosen's hands formed seals, illusion and soul-stealing techniques. After all, these servants are just ordinary people, not vicious butchers. It is really difficult for them to let them kill people. So Rosen directly deprived them of their memories of today, and all the servants returned to their rooms dully like zombies. The next moment, all the servants on the scene disappeared on the spot, and they were thrown into the twisted space. This is a cubic space with a length, width, and height of 1,000 meters. The upper, lower, front, and left walls of this space are all covered with human limbs. Some have half of a person's body exposed, while others only leave their arms in the air, scratching and dancing. This is twisted space. At the same time, in the center of the twisted space, there is a small mountain. The young Ten Tails heard the noise and turned around to see Rosen. By this time, all the officers were scared to death. They had never seen such a strange scene before. Roar! The young Ten Tails moved its body and rushed towards Rosen. After arriving in front of Rosen, he lowered his body like a pet and put his head close to Rosen. The young Ten Tails has only one eye on its head, and it is a huge amount of blood-red Magatama Samsara eye. Rosen reached out and touched the head of the young Ten Tails. The young Ten Tails let out a low roar, as if it was enjoying Rosen's touch. They are your food. No, help, I was wrong, don't eat me, don't eat me. The guards howled in horror and despair. They never dreamed that a rich man from the countryside could be so terrifying. Originally, in their opinion, their status as servants was enough to destroy the families of these rich rural people. But I never thought that Rosen would not play any tricks with them at all, and his methods were so terrifying. Rosen looked at a group of policemen begging for mercy and said, "Why do you come to me? If I hear the slightest lie, then you will use it as feed for my pets." It's the county official who wants to take over the land of Luojia village. A police officer said hurriedly. Originally, we were asked to rob grain seeds in order to make the villagers of Luojia village have no land to plant. Then he could use the abandoned fields as an excuse to take the fields back to the government, and then he could transfer them to Kaiyuan at a low price. Mr. Huang from the county. Who is Mr. Huang? Huang Dongping. He is a Jinshi master from Kaiyuan County. In this era, Jinshi were already a privileged class and could be exempted from taxes. And exempting taxes seems to exercise little power. However, it can attract some squires or farmers to put their fields in the name of this Jinshi, thereby evading taxes. If it is a field owned by a gentry, the Jinshi usually receives a small benefit. However, if it is just ordinary farmers who rely on the fields, most of them will be directly swallowed up in a few years. Therefore, as long as you pass the Jinshi examination, you can become a local powerful person without settling down in a few years. It is because of this that the old scholar wants to get a Jinshi. Rosen understood. It turned out that someone had taken a fancy to the land in Luojia village, which led to this unreasonable disaster. Master Luo, I can help you with things. A guard said in horror. Even if you want me to kill the county magistrate, I will do it for you. I can do that too. I can do that too. Rosen originally wanted to kill them all, but at this moment he had other ideas. Although he is not afraid of the government, if he uses violent means, trouble from the government will only come in a steady stream. How can you say that you are almost dead? Luo, this guy is just a deserter from a black household. The county official hasn't even had time to register him. A yamen servant said sadly. The county official saw that this man has a ruthless heart, so he hired him to do some things for him. It's a shameful thing, and I'll kill the dog officer when I get back. Who will pay attention to this deserter then? I'm going to do it myself. Rosen didn't want to help these government officials, it was entirely because he didn't want to take revenge at the hands of others. The blood of your own family must be recovered by yourself. One is the county magistrate of Kaiyuan County, and the other is Huang Dongping, a Jinshi of Kaiyuan County. Two ordinary people had no difficulty with Rosen. On that day, the county minister and Huang Dongping drowned in the latrine. As for those government servants, Rosen left them with the art of tongue. Ask them to help look at the yamen and see what kind of person the new county official is. Of course, if he is a good official, then Rosen will not care about him. Even if it's a little bit greedy, Rosen thinks it's acceptable. After all, official salaries during the Hongwu period were too low. But if the harm to the local area is too great, then Rosen will inevitably have to eliminate harm for the people. The past few years have been uneventful, and my wife and children are in good health. But the problem with Feng Ping Lang Jing is that he didn't get even a single space-time point. It is very difficult to find time and space points in the Marvel world, especially now that the main plot of the Marvel world has not even started yet. The current characters in the main plot are Asgard and Ancient One. The Ancient One cannot be offended. Although the Ancient One in this timeline is still very weak, she is very powerful in the future. She can even slap herself by traveling through time. As for Asgard, they are even more untouchable. Before the rebellious princess came out of the seal, Asgard was very awesome. So where do we go to get space-time points? Next time you go to other worlds, you must first accumulate enough time and space points for the second time travel in other worlds. Otherwise, it will still be too difficult to accumulate time and space points in the Marvel world. Rosen thought of Kunlun and Wukui. By the way, I haven't given the Greer Stone to Wukui yet. It just so happened that I wanted to go to Kunlun this time. Leonor, I will be away for more than a month, so you will take care of the family affairs. Yes, husband, you have to be careful on the road. Chen Lian nodded slightly. Chen Lian is a very traditional lady, knowledgeable and sensible, with a gentle and quiet personality. After Rosen arranged his affairs, he went to Kunlun Mountain alone. It took more than 3 months to go to Kunlun, and now it only takes 10 days to reach Kunlun Mountain again. This is because Rosen didn't use his flying ability. Long-distance flying consumes too much energy. The 10-ring energy is Rosen's lifespan, so Rosen is not willing to speed up his steps by consuming his lifespan if it is not necessary. After nightfall, Rosen went directly to the Kunlun Jade Palace. The Kunlun Jade Palace was still so majestic and sacred. Building such pavilions and palaces requires a lot of manpower and material resources, even in densely populated areas. Not to mention that in such a deserted place and at such a high altitude, the money required may be more than 10 times that of other places. These old antiques in Kunlun always talk about saving the world and saving the people, but if they are really serious, why don't they use the money to build the Jade Palace to help the people? Rosen stood on the wall and was about to look for Wu Kui when he was suddenly interrupted by a shout. Who? Rosen saw an old Kunlun Taoist priest, but it was not the one he saw last time. Rosen jumped up, jumped several feet, and landed directly on the attic not far away. The old Kunlun Taoist also jumped up. I saw the veteran slapping Rosen in the air, and slapping him with overwhelming force. Rosen was shocked and turned over on the roof to avoid Lao Dao's palm. The power of this palm is not very destructive, and it is at most AC level ninjutsu. But it just gave Rosen a very dangerous feeling. The old man took several steps in succession with his feet in the void, and then a huge amount of white crane suddenly appeared under his feet. By he led Lao Dao and chased Rosen. Seeing this, Rosen couldn't help but be secretly surprised. The white crane at the feet of this old Taoist should be his imperial method. Rosen turned around and took a deep breath, using the fire escape and fireball technique. The next moment, Rosen spit out a fireball 10 meters in diameter. The old Taoist was startled. Seeing the fireball approaching, he hurriedly mobilized all his energy and blood. Boom! Huge amounts of fireballs bombarded Lao Dao. Lao Dao was knocked to the ground, but he jumped up with a dark face. Thief! I thought that this fireball was so powerful that it must be extremely powerful. But he never thought that this power was much weaker than he imagined. If it falls on a building, it will be very destructive. But when it falls on people, it is obviously not lethal enough. Rosen secretly thought that Kunlun's technique was indeed unique. Let's just say that the old man in front of me probably has a combat strength of more than 50,000. In the ninja world, he is also a master of senjutsu. In the ninja world, Jiraiya, Namikaze Minato, etc. are much weaker than this old man in terms of senjutsu. Kunlun's skills are not weak, and the 24 chi training techniques he obtained from Wu Kuina are entry level. Just like the 24 chi refining techniques, which can only be reached to the highest level of perfection, you still need to understand the magical power of the Dharma by yourself. If they can learn some magical moves from the ninja world, they will definitely be able to take off on the spot. At this moment, a heat wave suddenly hit him. Rosen was startled, and when he turned around, he saw a hot fireball coming toward his face. That was not a fireball, but a figure whose whole body was burning with hot flames. The person who came was none other than Wu Kui. His body was as hot as a furnace, and his speed was as fast as thunder. His punch was his ultimate move, hitting Rosen on the chest with one blow. Rosen was directly blasted out of the Jade Palace, blasted off the cliff, and fell into the abyss. Just when Wu Kui thought that the visitor would definitely die, he saw a golden light appearing under the cliff and rising from the abyss. Wu Kui looked at Rosen, whose whole body was wrapped in golden light, in confusion. However, Rosen did not stay. Instead, after meeting Wu Kui, he flew directly through the air and flew down the mountain. Thieves, please leave. Wu Kui raised his legs and chased after him. In fact, Wu Kui had already recognized the person, and he shouted so to avoid being discovered that he knew Rosen. Two figures, one golden and one red, moved around on the rugged and steep cliffs. Rosen didn't stop until he was 100 miles away from Kunlun Mountain. Rosen, is it you? Wu Kui still couldn't believe it. Rosen's cultivation level was higher than he thought. This is probably innate, and it should be impossible to practice the 24 chi training techniques to achieve innate talent. You must know that even he has studied and practiced other techniques for 10 years before he reached the innate level. Wu Kui, I haven't seen him in 10 years. I miss him so much. Rosen looked at Wu Kui with a smile and dispersed the golden light around him. What are you doing here this time? Rosen took out 100 graze stones, and Wu Kui was his guide and his first teacher in his cultivation. He also violated Kunlun's sect rules and taught himself the 24 chi training techniques. For Rosen, Wu Kui owes him a great debt of gratitude. So he must repay the favor within his ability. This stone is a stone I found in a foreign land. It contains a huge amount of chi. Each stone can save a year of hard work. It is by absorbing the chi contained in this stone that I have been able to achieve this goal in 10 years. breaking through the current realm, but you need to be careful when absorbing it. This stone contains impurities, so when absorbing it, an additional process is required to remove the impurities. Quote. Wu Kui picked up a gray stone, and after a moment of perception, he felt the rich energy in the gray stone. Good thing. Sent to you. Wu Kui was in a daze. These stones are priceless. You gave me the 24 qi refining techniques back then, and now I give you these stones, which is considered even. Of course, if you feel bad about it, you can give me some magical secrets. Wu Kui spent 6 days absorbing a Greer stone. For Rosen, this Greer stone can last for a year of hard work. But for Wu Kui, this one can last 3 years of hard training. Wu Kui raised his head and looked at Rosen in shock. These 100 Greer stones could allow him to enter the legendary realm. Rosen, this is my Kunlun's body tempering and bone refining technique. Rosen looked disgusted, but he did not stop and put the secret book in his arms. Aren't there any higher-end techniques? Yes, but I can't give it to you. Wu Kui said. However, there are many body refining techniques in this world, but the body tempering and bone refining technique is unique. There is only one bone refining technique in the world. Is there a realm beyond innateness? Yes, above the innate world, there are 3 flowers gathering at the top, and 5 qi rising towards the origin. If one cultivates to the realm of 3 flowers, one can enjoy the lifespan of heaven and human beings, 800 years of life, and the 5 declines will not come, and the number of days will not decrease. Among the Shenzhou, are there any hidden sects like Kunlun? Longhu Mountain emerged in the Eastern Han Dynasty, and it has been 1,300 years since then. Although Wudang was founded and was canonized by the state, it is still the best in the world. Maoshan Taoism specializes in the art of ghosts and gods, and also has unpredictable abilities. Zhongnan Mountain Quanjun cultivates the heart. Kunlun has some contacts with these sects, I don't know about the others. From this point of view, there are really many strange people and strangers in China. If each sect has 1 or 2 masters like Wu Kui, then the Women's Federation may not even be able to enter the national sect if they form a team. Get 50 time and space points. Rosen was slightly dazed. It seemed that his act of sending the Grail Stone had caused another major change in Wu Kui's fate. When Wu Kui returned to Kunlun Mountain, several elders from the sect heard the news and came. Wu Kui, did you catch the thief who broke into my Kunlun that night? I didn't catch him. I ran thousands of miles with him. This man's magical skills are very good. Even if my life was at stake, I didn't take advantage. However, I was able to get these stones from his hands. Wu Kui took out a few gray stones from his arms. He had already calculated the number needed for him to cultivate to the 3 flowers realm, and contributed the rest to these elders. What's this? Soon all the elders exclaimed. Could this be the legendary spiritual stone? This thing is truly amazing. All the elders were ecstatic, and the head of Kunlun looked at Wu Kui with burning eyes. Are there still these stones? Wu Kui took out the remaining dozen coins. Not long after, they were snatched away by a group of elders. Do you know that person's origins? Wu Kui frowned slightly, then shook his head. I don't know. What a shame. Wu Kui knew that if he told Rosen's origin, these seemingly upright elders would probably go to snatch it at all costs. At that time, either Rosen will die or these elders will die. This is not a situation he wants to see. At this time, Rosen had accumulated enough 100 space-time points, and after leaving the boundary of Kunlun Mountain, he directly started the space teleportation. Umbrella Company will serve you sincerely. Rosen was wearing ancient costume and standing in Umbrella Park in Raccoon City. On the big screen in the park square, Umbrella Company was being promoted. So here it is. Resident Evil World. Mission 1. Kill at least 1 million zombies. The greater the number, the more generous the reward will be. Task 2. Kill at least 1 high-ranking member of the Umbrella team. The more people there are, the more generous the rewards will be. Task 3. Clear at least 1 city of zombies. Less than 1 zombie per square kilometer is considered a success. The more cities where zombies are cleared, the richer the reward will be. Task 4. Inject the T-virus and persist for at least 1 hour without injecting the antidote. The longer you persist, the richer the reward will be. Task 5. The more times you fight against at least 1 mutant infected person, the more generous the rewards will be. Task 6. It takes 100 time and space points to return to the original world. If you stay in this world for 10 years, after 10 years, for every additional year, the time and space points required to return will increase by 10%. At this moment, several police cars suddenly appeared and surrounded Rosen. Don't move, lie down on the ground immediately. More than a dozen guns were pointed at Rosen. Rosen's eyes flickered. Did he do something? He just stood here and did nothing. Why would these policemen target him? Rosen thought for a while and gave up resistance. Lao Hong held his head in his hands and stood there. Soon, Rosen was shackled and sent to the police station. At this moment, Rosen was sitting in the interrogation room. In front of him was a middle-aged white policeman. Now tell me your identity. Are you a spy from the East? Or a stowaway? Faced with the aggressiveness of the middle-aged policeman, Rosen's expression remained normal. He raised his head and looked at the middle-aged policeman. I didn't do anything. How did you find me? Park surveillance, your facial scan and the database cannot be matched. The middle-aged policeman said. There is only one reason why it cannot be matched. You are an Oriental. I need a lawyer's assistance. Rosen said with a smile. I won't say anything until I see a lawyer. Then just wait. America's judicial institutions do provide free legal aid. No matter what the crime is, you will definitely get legal aid as long as you apply, but you need to queue up. It might be a month, it might be a year. After all, America's lawyers are limited, but criminals are unlimited. Rosen was put into a detention room and met 3 roommates. Hey, here comes a little monkey. I haven't touched a woman for a long time, so I just need him to deal with the emergency. Rosen raised his hand, then made a fist and punched the wall. Bang! The concrete wall was sunken, leaving a clearly visible punch mark. What's your name? Rosen asked. The 3 roommates were sweating and trembling. The one whose name was called and who planned to have close contact with Rosen's anus had a Chinese character for GA tattooed on his face. At this moment, his whole body was shaking. My name is. I will call you a Diao from now on. Do you have any objection? No objection. Rosen looked at the other 2 people. Your name is Zhao Rishan, your name is Long Aocean. After a friendly exchange, a Diao, Zhao Rishan and Long Aocean all got to know Rosen. A Diao's main job was a stripper. When receiving a customer, the customer overdosed and died, and then he was sued for negligent death. Because the washing powder was provided by him and the location was at his home. Zhao Rishan and Long Aocean are brothers and close relatives. When they were shopping for $0, they miscalculated and accidentally exceeded $950, and then they were caught. The main reason why they were caught was that they were not black men. The second reason was that the location where they bought for 0 yuan was a gold store, and the second reason was that the amount exceeded the 0 yuan purchase limit dozens of times. Boss, when you get out, I'll treat you to the best washing powder. A Diao said flatteringly. That's not necessary. We Orientals are allergic to this stuff. It's a crime to think about it. Aren't you worried that you can't get out? They have no evidence to prove that the washing powder is mine. A Diao said confidently. The customer could have brought it himself. He is a frequent visitor here, and he is arrested on different charges every time, so he already knows the basic legal knowledge well. He already had an idea of how long he would be detained. Sigh. This time the 2 of us will probably be imprisoned for more than 10 years. Zhao Rishan said with a sad look on his face. They charged a lot this time, including illegal possession of firearms, intimidation and threats, and illegal robbery of property. The amount of charges was huge. The total of these crimes started in 10 years. Don't worry, you won't be locked up for that long. Really, we don't have to be locked up for that long. I think one day in the future, you may want to be able to lock it up longer. Boss, what do you do? I am here to save the people of America. This. The 3 of them looked at each other, thinking that Rosen was crazy. America's detention room is really not a place for people to stay. It's cold in winter and hot in summer, and the rooms on the left and right are constantly sending people in. Even their cubicle sent 3 more roommates in that night. A drug addict next door howled all night. The next day, Rosen was awakened by gunshots. Outside the police station, there seemed to be a large-scale and prolonged conflict. Rosen's shadow went out to take a look. At this time, there was already chaos outside. Hey, it came just in time. The biochemical crisis broke out. At this time, the whole street had been destroyed, and the streets and alleys were full of walking dead. Rosen marveled at the speed of the spread of the virus. Yesterday it seemed to be fine, but this morning it had plunged the entire city into chaos. For it to spread so quickly, rats, cockroaches and the like were probably the first to be infected, and then began to attack humans on a large scale. It is basically difficult for humans to notice if they are bitten in their sleep. So in one night, 90% of the residents in Raccoon City were infected. What happened outside? A Diao asked. Isn't there someone coming to save me? How is it possible? There aren't such ferocious gangs in Raccoon City. Everyone was talking about it, and Long Aocean came to Rosen. Boss, seeing that you are so calm, is it possible that people outside are here to find you? Haha, he's here to see all of us. Rosen's smile was a little scary. At this moment, John, the old police chief who had interrogated Rosen yesterday, hurried in, his face full of panic. Then he took out the keys and opened all the iron bars of each detention room. Old John, what are you doing? What happened outside? All the regular visitors to the detention center looked at Old John curiously. Most of them have entered the palace many times, so most of the time, they will not attack the police at will, especially this is a police station. Crazy. Everyone outside is crazy. Old John's tone was a little frightened. Only by going outside and seeing the situation outside can we understand how chaotic it is outside. Those people ate everyone, and then the people who were eaten stood up again. Hee hee. At this moment, everyone heard laughter coming from behind the crowd. When they turned their heads, they saw that the laughter was coming from Rosen. Welcome to the end of the world. What's the meaning? Order is no longer there. 99% of the people in Raccoon City have been infected by a virus. The virus kills the host and then turns them into walking zombies who only know how to eat. Any living creature is their prey, and they only need to be infected. One bite will give you the same feeling as an infected person. Rosen's eyes swept over everyone present and said in an encouraging tone, "You can do whatever you want now." Are you kidding me? How could such a ridiculous thing happen? Rosen walked out of the detention room and out of the police station. Old John did not stop him because he knew that the situation outside was indeed what Rosen said. Brother, wait for me. At this time, a Diao, Zhao Rishan, and Long Aocean chased out. But when they came out, the walking corpses lingering at the door of the police station on the street began to rush towards them. Oops. A Diao, Zhao Rishan and Long Aocean looked frightened and turned around to escape back to the police station. Rosen directly sent the zombie in front of him into the twisted space and appeared in front of the young Ten Tails. My youngest, this is your snack. Eat it and see if you like it. The young Ten Tails lowered his head, glanced at the snarling zombies in front of him, looked left and right, then grabbed a zombie and threw it into his mouth. Hold head high. The young Ten Tails howled with pleasure. Apparently, it was satisfied with the taste of zombies. As for whether it will be infected, the Ten Tails is not simply a living thing. It is actually more plant-like. Its body structure is different from humans and most mammals, so there is no such thing as infection at all. As long as you are satisfied, it won't take long before you can take root here. Rosen said. Without a doubt, what better place to plant a sacred tree than in the world of Resident Evil? But first, we have to wait until Raccoon City is detonated. The current juvenile Ten Tails is still too weak and does not have the ability to resist nuclear bombs. Moreover, he does not have the Samsara Eye, so he cannot activate the infinite Tsukuyomi. He can only develop a technique that can pass through the golden reincarnation eye and is suitable for zombies. Next, you need to contact each character of Resident Evil and obtain time and space points from them. A Diao, Zhao Rishan and Long Aocean suddenly found that the sound behind them disappeared. When he turned around, he saw Rosen standing alone, and all the zombies he had seen before had disappeared. What happened? Rosen looked back at the three of them. You should go and spend time with your families. With that said, Rosen walked away. The origin of Resident Evil is the underground hive in Raccoon City, and the entrance is the villa standing in the suburbs. There is a larger and deeper hive below the hive, which is the starting point and the end of everything. The Umbrella Corporation wants to exterminate all human beings and then conduct a major purge. During this period, the Umbrella Corporation's top executives are sleeping under the hive. There's no point in dealing with the headquarters below the hive now. At present, the disaster has just begun, and the senior officials of the Umbrella Company have not yet settled in. Now that they destroy the Umbrella headquarters, they can create one, two, or countless more, and they may even disperse them into dormancy. Although the villa at the entrance to the hive had obvious features, it still took Rosen 2 or 3 days to find it. When Rosen entered the villa, he found that there had obviously been an armed invasion, but there was no obvious battle. Alice being forcibly taken into the hive by Umbrella security at the beginning should have happened. However, judging from the tear gas that had not dissipated in the air, they had not been in the hive for long. When Rosen was exploring the bedroom, he saw a couple's wedding photos on the bedside table. Is this Alice? Rosen put down the wedding photos and started looking for the entrance. As Rosen walked through the hall, beams of light were projected from various corners of the hall, and these beams of light outlined a little girl in a red dress. Who are you? This is private territory. Your invasion has violated Article 198 of the Constitution. You will face charges of more than 10 years in prison, and any counterattack by me will be in compliance with the Fortress Agreement. Red Queen, Super Artificial Intelligence. Rosen stopped and stared at the Red Queen. If you can tell me where this owner's money is hidden, I can leave as soon as I get the money. There is a safe behind the bookshelf in the study, the Red Queen said without hesitation. Is this a three-dimensional projection? It looks very high-end. Rosen looked at the Red Queen's projection with curiosity in his eyes. You still have 15 minutes, I've already called the police. The Red Queen said. The nearest police station is 30 minutes away from here. Rosen said. And now the whole Raccoon City is in chaos, tell me who else can call the police. The Red Queen fell into silence. After a while, the Red Queen spoke again. I didn't find your identity information in the file. Are you not a robber? I'm just a lost wanderer, Rosen said. At this moment, some switch seemed to be activated on one of the walls. A hole opened in the wall, and 2 zombie dogs emerged from the hole. A small instrument was installed behind the ears of the 2 zombie dogs, which flashed red light. Wow, what a cute puppy. What kind of breed is this? Rosen looked at the 2 zombie dogs with surprise. 2 zombie dogs suddenly rushed towards Rosen. Rosen raised his right foot and swept out, and 2 zombie dogs flew out in response. When the Red Queen saw this, she immediately cancelled the stereoscopic projection. Rosen knocked 2 zombie dogs away with one movement. She had already calculated and confirmed that a small number of zombies or zombie dogs would not pose a threat to Rosen. And Rosen is not a home invasion robber, there is a high probability that he is an agent spy or something. So there is no point in continuing to harp on Rosen. She didn't have any force at hand that could threaten Rosen, so she directly opened the entrance to the hive. In her calculations, Rosen's chance of survival after entering the hive was 0.01%. Rosen was a little surprised when he saw that the fireplace actually started to move left and right, revealing the dark passage behind it. What a clever little guy. Rosen quickly figured out the Red Queen's intention. Rosen walked into the passage and passed through an underground waterway that spanned more than 30 kilometers. Originally, this underground tunnel needed to be connected by underground trains. Rosen walked slowly, slightly faster than ordinary people. There are surveillance cameras along the way, so the Red Queen must still be watching her. Rosen was not afraid of any attack from the Red Queen. The main reason is that she is afraid that the Red Queen will pass her data to the upper management of the Umbrella, and it will be difficult for me to get them one by one. The top management of the Umbrella were all transferred in after the nuclear explosion. After the nuclear explosion in Raccoon City, everyone felt that Raccoon City was finished, so naturally no one paid attention to Raccoon City anymore. Umbrella executives also took advantage of this mentality. They chose this place as their hiding and sleeping place. Alice, Spencer, and the Umbrella security team are currently operating in the maze-like laboratory. Why is there so much water here? Security Captain James Shade frowned slightly. Maybe after the fire broke out here, the fire extinguishing device was activated. Everyone walked through the water, but the water here was up to their calves, making it extremely difficult for everyone to walk. They saw that in the closed laboratory compartments on both sides of the corridor, water accumulated and even flooded the ceiling of the entire laboratory. You can also see many experimenters wearing white coats sitting in these laboratory cubicles. Everyone carefully walked through the freezing area. In the freezing area, they found some strange metal containers. There seemed to be something sealed in ice in these metal containers. After arriving at the central control room, Kaplan, the computer expert in the team, began to crack the password door lock. It took an hour, during which the team members urged him many times, that Kaplan finally cracked the password door lock. After the password door was opened, he walked through a long and narrow passage, and opposite was the central control room. One of the purposes of their trip, the Red Queen's main computer, was stored in the central control room. Alice glanced at the passage. What's in it? This is the host of the entire hive's intelligence system. You stay here. Our task is to shut down the Red Queen and take the host out. James said. He was still very wary of Alice. Alice can feel James's hostility, but now her memory is almost completely lost, and she doesn't know why James is so hostile to her. No one at the scene knew that their conversations were recorded on surveillance cameras. And the Red Queen is watching their every move. The Red Queen is not only the manager of the hive, but also the controller of the virus. Her mission is to prevent the spread of the virus. Once she is shut down, the virus in the hive will spread out. The Red Queen belongs to the internal network and is not connected to the external network. It is not clear that large areas of virus-infected people have already appeared in the outside world. So the Red Queen will never allow anyone to shut herself down. Closing yourself means that the virus is out of control and that you have failed in your responsibility. In her program, virus control is the top directive. After all, the current tragedy in the hive laboratory is to control the spread of the virus, so she doesn't mind wiping out all these outsiders. And she soon created a world-famous painting, Laser Barbecue. Just then, a stranger walked into the room. Everyone became alert in an instant and pointed their guns at the sudden arrival of Rosen. Who are you? I'm the computer administrator here. Rosen said with a sincere smile. Can you put your guns down? I'm afraid. James's gun was still pointed at Rosen, but he did not relax his vigilance. Why are you still alive? As a computer administrator, I originally worked here, so when the laboratory went out of control, this place was not affected. Is this reasonable? Kaplan asked. So, can you open the door on the inside? Sorry, I can't do it. In the past, I needed the Red Queen to control the opening or closing of the door in and out. Rosen said. And the door outside was opened just now, and it was not you who opened it. The Red Queen opened it on purpose. Kaplan immediately shouted. This is impossible, I can't make a mistake. If you were in the outside world, you could borrow the computing power of other computers and possibly break through the Red Queen's defense program. But here, the Red Queen's computing power is tens of billions of times faster than yours, so the computer in your hand cannot be faster than yours. The Red Queen has higher computing power and is even less likely to break through the Red Queen's defense program. Am I right, Red Queen? Rosen looked up at the monitor. At this moment, a three-dimensional projection appeared in front of everyone. You are not the computer administrator here. The entire hive is controlled by me. I am perfect, so there is no need to add another administrator. The Red Queen said. You outsider, what is your purpose? Everyone also looked suspicious and looked at Rosen warily. It's because you are so perfect that you need an administrator, because the company is afraid that you will lose control, just like here, you killed everyone in the hive. Everyone immediately felt that Rosen's words made sense. Indeed, the Red Queen was indeed out of control. And he seems to know the Red Queen very well. If he has never been in contact with her, he would not know the Red Queen so well. What do you think the Red Queen's purpose is for deliberately opening the door outside? Kaplan asked again. Don't you think this passage is a bit redundant? Rosen said, pointing to the passage. Kaplan looked towards the passage and frowned slightly. James also looked at Kaplan. Kaplan, what's the problem? Indeed, from an architectural point of view or from a practical point of view, this passage is redundant. If it is to add a door, there is no need for such a long passage. Architecturally speaking, the two adjacent rooms can be separated by a door, and there is no need to add a passage. Quote. So what's the purpose of this passage? Trap, Rosen said. There are many lasers arranged on this passage. As long as you enter it, the doors on the left and right will be locked, and then, the laser transmitters will start. Next, some people will be able to experience world-famous paintings. Cold sweat broke out on James's forehead. What would have happened if he and his teammates had stepped into it just now? He looked at Kaplan again. Is everything he said true? Kaplan came to the passage, looked into the passage, and then nodded to James. What he said is most likely true. There are laser transmitters on the walls, floors, and ceilings. Once these laser transmitters are activated, no one is immune. James looked at Rosen again. You have a way to get through, right? Isn't this very simple? Just throw a grenade over and destroy the electronic circuits and laser transmitters in this channel. The Red Queen looked at Rosen. Since you know me so well, you should know what will happen if you close me. James stared at Rosen. Do you know what will happen? Rosen nodded. I know. What's going to happen? It's not that something will happen, but it's already happened. Rosen looked at James and said, you all seemed to be in a closed state before you came in here. We have been conducting closed training at the base. The Umbrella Company is researching a biochemical weapon called the T-virus. This T-virus can infect living people or corpses, and then make them lose their minds. At the same time, they will have strong aggression and desire to eat, and the infected person can pass through the teeth. He could infect other people by scratching with his nails. Rosen's smile gradually became meaningful. Now the entire Raccoon City has fallen, and there are such human-eating monsters everywhere. Rosen looked at the Red Queen again. And all this is because of her negligence. You're talking nonsense. Under my control, no virus-infected people have escaped. You did kill all the people in the laboratory, but you can't control the sources of virus infections such as rats and cockroaches. At this time, everyone noticed a problem. Rosen said that he was a computer administrator, so even if he survived, he would not know the situation outside. Since Rosen knows the situation outside, it means that he came in from the outside. Who are you? The computer administrator doesn't know the hive that well, nor can he know the Red Queen that well. Rosen took out another Raccoon City Police Department badge and showed it to everyone, which he took easily. I have been investigating the illegal operations and research of umbrella companies, so I have a lot of secrets of umbrella companies. You are not a police officer from the Raccoon City Police Department. I did not find any information about you at the Raccoon City Police Department. How can you, a regional network player, know this? I can't be a new recruit. Rosen said disdainfully. My database will be updated every month, unless you just joined the job this month, but even if you just joined the job, it is impossible for you to investigate so much information in less than a month. Can't I accept the information from seniors? James and others also looked at Rosen and the Red Queen suspiciously. They felt that neither Rosen nor the Red Queen could be trusted. Rosen shrugged. In short, do you believe me or this artificial retard who wants to eliminate you all? Then what is your purpose? The Red Queen's host contains a lot of criminal evidence of the Umbrella Company. I want to take the host away. This is the evidence for their destruction of Raccoon City. Impossible. James immediately objected. There is absolutely no way I will let you take the host away. They are all people trained by the Umbrella. How could they let Rosen take the host away? Since you want to find the secrets of the Umbrella Company, I can't keep you. James pointed the gun at Rosen. Rosen sighed. In addition to being a policeman, I am also a magician. Do any of you want to see my magic? Is this the last magic hour in your life? James's finger was already on the trigger. Whoosh! James's palm was empty, and the machine gun in his hand had fallen into Rosen's hand. In shock, James quickly reached out to snatch the gun back and pull the trigger at the same time. Caca! Rosen stretched out his hand, and there were bullets in his hand. Seeing this, everyone else raised their guns at the same time. Rosen grabbed James and stood in front of him. His team members did not dare to shoot when they saw this situation. James was a Navy SEAL, so he was naturally very skilled, but in front of Rosen, he was like a child, and several counterattacks were easily resolved. At this moment, Vice Captain Lane suddenly rushed towards Rosen. Rosen raised his foot, then reached out to grab Ryan's shoulder, and threw him over the shoulder. Several other team members also stepped forward. They were confident that they could capture Rosen even if they didn't use guns. But gradually they discovered that the 8 of them, all of whom were Navy SEALs, were unable to take down Rosen even if they joined forces. Instead, they were knocked down one by Rosen. In just 1 minute, James and others were all lying on the ground, with multiple contusions all over their bodies and unable to stand up. Rosen looked at the people on the ground. Now I want to take away the host. Who is in favor of it and who is against it? He looked around and said, no one seems to object. Rosen walked into the passage. At this moment, the front and rear doors were suddenly locked. That's really naughty. Rosen looked at a laser beam appearing at the end of the passage. Rosen pointed his finger, and the laser directly shattered the iron door in the direction of the central control room, and then walked in casually. Anyway, we have arrived in front of the Red Queen's host. She also said that she will only update information with the outside world once a month, and this kind of information update will probably require someone to manually connect to the external network. There is no need to worry about her sending it now. The message is transmitted. In the central control room, a host of huge amounts of money appeared in front of Rosen. This host is entirely painted black, with many red and green light spots flashing on the body. The host was connected to more than a dozen lines. Rosen carefully unplugged the lines and then put the host into the twisted space. The moment Rosen put away the main unit, the entire hive's control system also stopped working. At the same time, most of the motors also stopped working, and most of the entire hive was plunged into darkness. Rosen swaggered out of the passage, and what greeted him was the muzzles of James and others. Da da da. In the darkness, after James and others vaguely saw Rosen coming out, they shot without hesitation. They didn't stop attacking until the magazine was empty. Ha ha. Rosen's ghostly voice came from the darkness. Didn't you get beaten hard enough? You actually ambush me. Thanks to my kindness, I wanted to take you out. I was really wrong. Phew, I'm so heartbroken. Everyone felt horrified. They clearly saw Rosen coming out. Although there are no lights, they all have lights on their bodies. Even if one or two of them see it wrong, it cannot be that everyone sees it wrong. At this moment, the indoor lights turn on again. This is the backup motor. Once the main power supply is disconnected, the backup motor will start on its own. I saw Rosen sitting on the table, looking at everyone with a smile. Everyone pointed their guns at Rosen. Rosen took out the magazines one by one. Put down your fire sticks. Only then did everyone realize that the magazines on their guns and the spare magazines were all missing. This made their faces look even more ugly, and it also made them understand that Rosen's skills were definitely not something they could fight against. Rosen returned the magazine to everyone. These people were all characters in the plot. Rosen wanted to take them all out of the hive alive. This should be able to obtain enough time and space points, so he did not want to do it if it was not necessary. Killer. Through his experience in the world of Naruto, Rosen has already made a preliminary judgment. Changing a person's fate can obtain basic time and space points, just like preventing a person who should die from death can obtain 5 basic time and space points. This person can be someone outside the plot, but it must have a certain correlation with the plot character. Take Sukie-chan, for example. Although he has not appeared in the plot, he should be related to the 3rd or 4th generation Raikage, so he saved him and gained time and space points. Secondly, if one of them changes the plot on the timeline, the more time and space points will be obtained. And through secondary contact and secondary changes, more time and space points can be obtained, just like Wu Kui. Rosen is guessing that his son Luo Ming is definitely not a plot character in the Marvel world, so it may be because of the impact Luo Ming's birth will have on the plot, so he will give 100 time and space points. Of course, if some of them must find it unpleasant, then I can only feel sorry. This is the last chance I give you. You'd better not challenge my patience. Rosen warned, while glancing at Alice and Spencer. Both of them felt that there was some unclear meaning in Rosen's eyes. When they came to the freezer, they found that there was water accumulation here as well. But the water was flowing out of those freezers. Obviously, there is no power supply from the backup motor, and all the experimental subjects here will be reawakened. At this moment, Kaplan suddenly shouted, and everyone saw a man in a white coat, with his mouth full of blood, staggering towards Kaplan. Stop. I tell you to stop. But the white coat didn't stop moving. Kaplan aimed at the thigh of the white coat, bang bang. The 2 shots penetrated the white coat, but did not stop his footsteps. Rosen came to Kaplan and said, aim at his head and destroy his brain nerves. Ah, he's just an ordinary person. Have you not noticed yet? He has turned into the zombie I mentioned before. He has no reason, only appetite. Once you are bitten or scratched by him, you will become just like him. Da da da. At this time, Ren aimed at the white coat and fired a series of shots. The white coat was blown away by the ballistics, but he was still flopping on the ground. Although the joints of his body were damaged, they did not stop completely. After being shot so many times, he can still move. I said, hit him on the head. With that said, Rosen grabbed Kaplan's pistol and shot the white coat in the head. Bang! The next moment, Rosen's head shrank, and the bullet passed by his scalp. Mud, it's so embarrassing to miss even at such a close distance. Bang bang bang. 3 more gunshots were fired, but Rosen's bullet missed the Mariana Trench. Rosen was very angry and threw the pistol back to Kaplan. What a crappy pistol you are. With that said, Rosen stepped forward and kicked the white coat's head to pieces. Kaplan looked at his pistol and muttered, "It's obviously your own poor shooting skills. You have to blame me, baby." James and others also discovered that Rosen's fighting skills were incredible, but the firearm was very unfamiliar and could miss the target from 2 to 3 meters away. This level was really appalling. Let's get out of here quickly. Once this place is completely thawed and these experimental subjects wake up, you will all have to answer here. Rosen's warning did not make everyone too vigilant. After all, they all had guns in hand. And how much stronger are these experimental bodies than the previous white coat? Isn't it the difference between 1 shot and 2 shots? Before the team left the freezer, several dark figures appeared in front of them. They were several hounds that had turned into zombies, with sticky saliva flowing from the corners of their mouths, and blood-colored light exuding from their eyes. James's eyes narrowed and he immediately ordered, "Kill these dogs." Da da da. However, these zombie dogs are very fast, far beyond what ordinary zombies can match. They move around faster than when they were alive. Several people's machine gun fire failed to hit a single bullet, but instead brought these zombie dogs closer and closer. A zombie dog suddenly flew up and bit Kaplan. Kaplan was so frightened that he sat down on the ground. When everyone else saw this, it was too late to stop him. Suddenly, a saber passed by everyone's eyes and pierced directly into the zombie dog's head. Rosen drew his saber and suddenly rushed towards the remaining zombie dogs. Slashing left and right, all the zombie dogs were killed by Rosen in just a few seconds. Rosen shook off the blood stains on his saber and looked at everyone. You can't resist just a few zombie dogs here. In this laboratory, zombie dogs are the weakest monsters besides ordinary zombies. If other monsters are thawed out, all of you will probably be dead. Only then did everyone realize that what Rosen said was true and he was not being alarmist. After Kaplan was rescued by Rosen, he became more fond of Rosen. Didn't you say you wanted that host? Why didn't you bring it out? I have already said that I am a magician, and magicians can do magic. This makes sense. A group of materialistic people who kill talents simply don't believe what Rosen said. After returning to the laboratory area, Spencer said, "Why don't we take a rest here?" "Okay, by the way, go get the stolen T-virus and its antidote," Rosen said. After everyone heard Rosen's words, they all looked at Spencer. What are you talking about? Why can't I understand you?" "Oh, don't you understand? You and Ms. Alice's sister are commercial spies. In order to create chaos, you deliberately put the T-virus into the laboratory, and then ask the Red Queen to kill all experimental research. Did I make a mistake about the personnel matter?" Rosen looked at Spencer with a smile. "I don't understand what you're talking about." At this moment, everyone's guns were pointed at Spencer. "I don't care if you understand it or not, but within 5 minutes, if you can't get the antidote for the T-virus, you will die ugly." Ouch. At this moment, at the corner of the aisle, zombies swarmed out. They all finally woke up and began to follow the sound. James and other security personnel hurriedly shot and killed the zombies. When Spencer saw this, he quickly turned around and ran away. Naturally, everyone saw Spencer's escape, but at this moment they couldn't take action at all. This experimental area is connected in all directions, and in the blink of an eye, Spencer disappeared around the corner. James looked at Rosen and found that Rosen was standing behind the crowd, and he didn't see any movement. Based on his understanding of Rosen's skills, if Rosen wanted to stop Spencer, one hand would be enough. But he allowed Spencer to leave, apparently intending to let Spencer remove the T-virus and antidote himself. "Don't waste ammunition, find another way," Rosen said. Rosen turned and left, and James looked at the dense zombies in front of him. Almost everyone in this hive has turned into zombies, with the number exceeding 2,000. Unless they can shoot headshots, even if they shoot all the bullets, they will not be able to eliminate all the zombies in the hive. "Leanne, Pacan, you two guard the rear, and the others will follow him," James ordered, and the team retreated in an orderly manner, following Rosen. James found that Rosen knew the road. Although there were many twists and turns, he encountered no danger along the way, and he felt a little relieved. It's just that Rosen's mysterious origin still makes James always fearful. Finally, they arrived at the underground station. James looked at Rosen. "Would you like to take the bus out now?" Rosen said with a smile. "Wait a moment, there is a big guy approaching." "Big guy? What big guy?" James did not dare to ignore Rosen's words at this time. "Here," Rosen pointed to the platform in front of him. At this moment, Spencer suddenly ran out, carrying a silver suitcase, screaming in terror as he ran. "Help! Help!" At this moment, a skinless monster suddenly rushed out from behind Spencer. The monster was 5 meters long, with long and thick limbs. As it ran, its slender tongue kept flicking. "That is the licker. Its original form is larger than a dog, but it can grow to the size of a tank in a very short period of time by eating." The licker in front of him had obviously eaten a lot of zombies. When everyone saw the licker, their faces changed wildly. Plop! Spencer stumbled, fell to the ground, and the suitcase slipped out. Rosen raised his foot and stepped on the suitcase. Looking at Spencer again, Spencer was already pinned to the ground by the licker's paw. Spencer raised his hands and shouted, "Help, save me." Rosen picked up the suitcase and threw it back. Alice subconsciously caught the suitcase. At this moment, Licker rushed towards Rosen. The saber in Rosen's hand swiped smoothly, and the licker's tongue was instantly cut off. Licker raised his paw and swung at Rosen. Rosen stepped back and swung the saber in his hand casually, and the licker's giant claw was cut off directly. "Ho ho!" The licker roared wildly, biting towards Rosen with its bloody mouth. Rosen's legs exerted a little force, and he jumped from the left side of the licker to the right. At the same time, he slashed the licker's head with the saber in his hand. The licker does not have eyes, it relies on 2 brain-like organs on the top of its head for heat sensing. Rosen's blade directly destroyed the licker's heat-sensing organ, and the licker instantly became blind. James and others were stunned at this moment. The tank-like monster looked like a child in front of Rosen. They had fought against Rosen before and were not killed by Rosen. They were so lucky. Rosen ignored the licker, and the licker went crazy on the spot. Without its heat-sensing organ, it becomes a headless fly. "Spence isn't dead yet," Alice reminded. "Help, save me." Spencer also called for help in a timely manner. Everyone looked at Rosen, waiting for Rosen to make a decision. Rosen glanced at Alice. "You sneaked into the umbrella and came to the hive to find your sister, right?" Alice looked up at Rosen. "Do you know where she is?" "She is dead." "Well, he was the one who killed her, so his life or death is up to you." Alice looked at Spencer with a bit of resentment in her eyes. "Let the monster stay with him." Everyone got on the underground train, and the train started heading towards the exit. "Actually, you don't have a sister," Rosen said to Alice. "What do you mean? Are my sister and I not biological sisters?" Alice asked in surprise. "You will know later," Rosen said with a smile. The Alice in front of her is actually a clone, and all her memories are false and fabricated. Even this trip to the hive was a test for Alice by the umbrella company. Rosen looked at Kaplan. "Kaplan, how about doing something for me?" "Sorry, I think you can't afford the price offered by the umbrella company." "I won't force you," Rosen shrugged. "If you or others think carefully and are willing to work for me, remember to come to the hive to find me. I plan to take the hive as my own." James and others felt that Rosen was just thinking. Not to mention that this hive belonged to the umbrella company. Even if the umbrella company abandoned the hive, there were still thousands of zombies occupying the hive. How could Rosen occupy this hive? "But before that, you can't tell me any information." Of course, I promise I won't say it. Kaplan quickly promised. I don't believe it. Rosen had a smile on his face, but Yan's eyes were full of doubts. Then how can you believe it? Kaplan was a little scared, and James and others also became nervous. At this moment, Alice noticed a dark shadow spreading quietly in the corner. And the black shadow was connected to Rosen's feet. But Rosen didn't make any moves, so why did the black shadow move so obviously? At this moment, Alice discovered that Rosen had not just one shadow, but 4 shadows, distributed in the 4 corners of the carriage. This is obviously very unreasonable. There is only one light source in the carriage, and it is impossible for 4 shadows to appear. At least she has only one shadow. Others did not notice this scene. Alice's heart beat faster. She didn't understand the origin of the guy in front of her. At this moment, 3 of the 4 shadows suddenly had a red light in their eyes and showed strange patterns. The next moment, all the eyes on the scene became dull. Rosen intercepted part of everyone's memory, but kept his final instructions. If they were desperate, they would know how to come to the hive to find themselves. This is the kaleidoscope ability of greed. As the kaleidoscope ability of greedy desire, the ability of his left eye is Fubazun, and the ability of his right eye is Mingzun. The ability of Fubazun is to occupy, or it can also be called getting something for nothing. As long as Fubazun is activated, the user can occupy anything of the opponent according to the user's wishes. Physical strength, physique, chakra, ninjutsu, and even memory. The ability of the right eye Mingzun is that everything he occupies can be converted into his own pupil power. Every time the left eye's Fubazun is activated, anything that occupies someone else's possessions can be transformed into one's own pupil power through the right eye's Mingzun. And how much pupil power is consumed by the left eye, how much pupil power the right eye will be able to exchange for. In other words, as long as it is used properly, this is currently the only pair of kaleidoscopes that will not cause blindness. However, once the Fubazun in the left eye occupies something too large, he will also become blind, and the right eye will not be able to restore the pupil technique of the left eye. For example, it is very simple for Rosen to just intercept the memories of these people within a few hours. But if it is a long-term memory, the price will be very high. For another example, if Rosen wanted to take over Senju Hashirama's bloodline or would escape, the price would definitely be huge, and he might be blinded directly. These memories were of no use to Rosen, so Rosen directly sold the memories in exchange for pupil power. At this moment, Rosen looked up at Alice. His Fubazun eye technique failed to successfully intercept Alice's memory, which surprised Rosen very much. Alice pretended to be controlled and imitated the others with a dull expression. If Rosen hadn't discovered that one memory was missing when he was selling his memories, he would have been deceived by Alice. To put it bluntly, pupil technique is the embodiment of mental power, but it is not absolute. Alice's mental power is very huge. Although it is not as good as Rosen, it is already higher than that of ordinary people. If Rosen was willing to put in some effort, Alice would also kneel down. Miss Alice, stop acting in front of me. Rosen looked at Alice with a smile. Alice's eyes turned to Rosen. After confirming that Rosen had indeed discovered that she had not been tricked, she simply stopped pretending. Who are you? Rosen smiled. I told you, I'm a magician. What did you do to them? They were attracted by my hypnotic ability. As a magician, I know how to use hypnotic ability. Is this reasonable? Then why wasn't I given hypnotic ability? I'm just giving Miss Alice a chance to join me, are you willing? I refuse. After Alice said her refusal, she looked at Rosen more warily. I'm about to get off the bus. By the way, there is a large group of armed personnel with protective umbrellas waiting for you at the exit. Alice's face couldn't help but change. How do you know? As a magician, it makes sense to know a little bit about prophecy, right? With that said, Rosen suddenly jumped off the train. Alice's eyes flickered, but she did not jump down. This train is traveling at 100 kilometers per hour. If she jumps off, she will definitely fall to her death. When the train arrived at the exit, James and others also woke up. Strange. Did I fall asleep just now? James rubbed his eyebrows. Alice sat silently in the corner of the carriage. The train slowly stopped, and when everyone got off the train, dozens of heavily armed men controlled everyone. including James and other Umbrella Company security personnel. They tried to resist, but the opponent's weapons were better than theirs, their numbers were larger, and they were well prepared. As they walked out of the exit, several tranquilizer bombs hit them. Rosen, who was in the hive, also received a system prompt, acquire 60 space-time points. Then more armed men entered the hive and began to clean up the zombies in the hive. Under the absolute suppression of force, all zombies were cleared away. But they discovered that the Red Queen host was missing. Obviously, James and others did not bring out the Red Queen console. Ask them, they didn't know why. Rosen is currently in an apartment in a residential building. All the residents in this residential building have been plagued by a few zombie dogs, and they still make their home here, so no one will disturb Rosen. As rent, Rosen collected the corpses for the family and buried them on the lawn downstairs, weighing them down with a stone to ensure that no zombies would dig them out, and that they would not dig them out themselves. Rosen opened the suitcase and found 2 spiral glass containers, green and blue, as well as a special syringe. Rosen picked up the syringe and the blue container, drew the T-virus inside into the syringe, and then injected himself into his abdomen. After the T-virus entered the body, Rosen immediately felt that the T-virus was rapidly active and multiplying. But similarly, the antibodies in Rosen's body are also working quickly. Both the T-virus and Rosen's antibodies have powerful evolutionary abilities. When an average person's body produces antibodies, it consumes a lot of physical strength, but Rosen's physical strength is dozens of times that of ordinary people, and his vitality is even more than 10 times that of ordinary people. When a normal virus enters Rosen's body, the original antibodies can completely eliminate the virus. In the first wave of offensive, the T-virus was 80% eliminated by the original antibodies. The remaining 20% of viruses began to evolve themselves, giving birth to more powerful viruses. Then the original antibodies began to lose their hold, and at the same time, the body's functions began to work rapidly to produce second-generation antibodies. It's like a war between 2 countries. You come out with a new weapon today, and tomorrow I will come out with a more powerful weapon. Rosen's physical energy and vitality were rapidly depleted, and his lifespan continued to decline from the original 800 years. But at the same time, Rosen's body continued to grow stronger in the confrontation between the virus and the antibodies. On the 5th day, the T-virus had evolved to the 9th generation in Rosen's body. Gradually, the T-virus seems to be running out of potential. Or maybe the evolution speed of antibodies exceeds the evolution speed of T-virus. Finally, the T-virus was completely lost and began to be wiped out by antibodies on a large scale. For the past few days, Rosen has been sitting in one place, as if he had gone through an all-out battle. At the same time, there were a lot of skin flakes around where Rosen was sitting, all of which had fallen off from Rosen's body. This time the injection of the T-virus cost Rosen 300 years of his life. But physically, he was at least twice as strong, not his original body, but his body before the injection. Now Rosen's physique is at least 100 times that of an ordinary person. His vitality was extremely strong, and Rosen felt that his vitality was like a fire burning in his body. At this moment, the lustful white eyes suddenly showed their first fetal movement. At the same time, the original whites of the eyes turned black, and the pupils also turned into blue. Rosen was a little surprised. In the original work, Byakugan evolved into the reincarnated eye, and there were 3 fetal movements. However, the appearance of the white eyes will not change much after the first 2 fetal movements. But this time, the lustful white-eyed fetal movements had a strange evolution. Lust, do you have it in your eyes? Lulu turned his head, his eyes showing shock. Is there any special ability? Master, my eyes saw the future 10 seconds from now. Rosen took a breath and saw the future. Rosen immediately allowed lust to possess him, and at the same time, double vision appeared in Rosen's eyes. Rosen raised his hand and put it in front of him, and then 2 pictures appeared in front of him. One was the picture of the arm now, and the other was the trajectory of the arm swing. Rosen touched his eyes. Are they pure eyes? Rosen injected his chakra into the pure eye, and a force spread out from the pure eye. This power covers a range of 10 meters and continues to exist at the same time, and Rosen's chakra is consumed rapidly. For this reason, this special power range consumes a large amount of chakra every moment. Rosen turned to look at the wall clock on the wall. The second hand of the wall clock stopped. Rosen was shocked once again. Time stopped. If it wasn't too much consumption, Rosen really wanted to experience this feeling again. With Rosen's chakra, his chakra can be exhausted in 5 seconds. This time domain is very powerful, but it consumes too much mana. The force value of 650,000 has been increased to 700,000. It seems that the increase is not big, but you must know that the difference of 50,000 is a 1,000-handed door. Rosen lifted the time domain and also lifted the state of lust. At this moment, jealousy suddenly attacked lust. Just like when he was first created, he tried to capture the eyes of lust. Mine, it's mine, only I am qualified to have such eyes. Rosen and lust raised their feet at the same time and kicked envy away. When I came to the window, the entire raccoon city at this time had completely fallen and turned into a bloody hell. There are countless zombies wandering around, attacking every living creature that smells like meat. Just then, Rosen heard gunshots. Happy America, shooting every day. Rosen looked downstairs at the street and saw a pickup truck rampaging down the street. On the back of the pickup truck was a heavy machine gun, and someone controlled the heavy machine gun to shoot at the zombies chasing after them. Kaplan, drive faster, James urged loudly. I've stepped on the accelerator and it's smoking. Kaplan also shouted in response. Rosen was very surprised to see James and Kaplan upstairs. Originally, Rosen thought they should be in the laboratory and being studied. After all, the umbrella work experiment was not recognized by relatives. At this time, their pickup truck hit a telephone pole on the side of the road, and they hurriedly fled the pickup truck. Rosen discovered that less than 10 days after the zombie crisis broke out, the zombies moved much faster. It seems that zombies are evolving faster than imagined. Rosen discovered that James and Kaplan actually ran towards his apartment building. But this is not surprising, because of Rosen, the zombies inside and outside the apartment building have been cleared. The two entered the lobby of the apartment building and immediately pulled down the security door. Zombies kept beating on the security door outside. Then the two sat on the ground, leaning against the security door and gasping for air. However, the security door also blocked the smell of the two of them, and gradually, the zombies outside began to disperse. James and Kaplan were almost rested and began to search the apartment building. The two searched apartments one by one and found that there was not a single zombie in the apartment building. At the beginning, they searched carefully, but then they felt relieved. Judging from the conditions of each suite, there should have been an outbreak of zombies here. However, judging from some traces, the zombies in this apartment building have been cleared away. But they couldn't find the food they needed most, and it was obvious that the food had been looted. The two speculated that a team might have come to the apartment building and cleaned up all the zombies while searching for food. Finally, the two of them reached the top floor, and they also discovered that the outside of the suite on the top floor was a bit too clean. The two looked at each other and saw that someone lived here. Just as the two men took out the weapons they carried, the door opened automatically. Captain, what's going on? Go in and take a look. James did not relax his vigilance. The two walked into the door step by step, and saw a person in the hall sitting on the sofa with his back to them, watching a TV series on the 120-inch large screen with his legs crossed. James quietly came up behind the man and pointed his gun at the back of the man's head. This is not the first time you have pointed a gun at me. Rosen did not look back. James kept reminiscing in his mind, did he know the person in front of him? Sit down, you guys haven't eaten for a long time. James and Kaplan did not put away their guns, but still sat on the sofa on both sides of Rosen. When they saw Rosen's face, they both felt that Rosen looked familiar, but they couldn't remember where they had seen Rosen. Seeing a lot of various snacks on the table in front of them, the two finally put down their guns and started drinking canned beer and eating snacks. Are there any staple food? Kaplan asked with his mouth full of popcorn. These snacks really can't satisfy his appetite, only staple food can fill his stomach. Rosen put down the beer in his hand and asked, how long have you not eaten? 5 days, we've all been injected with glucose or other things these days. Kaplan said casually. James looked at Rosen. Have we met somewhere? You and I were once teammates. This is impossible, James retorted with a very firm tone. If you were our former teammate, there is no way we can't remember it. You just escaped from the Umbrella Corporation's laboratory, right? What do you know? During our last operation, I had a premonition that the Umbrella Company would take advantage of us, so I persuaded you at that time to give up and return to the Umbrella Company, but you insisted on doing so, and in the end we had no choice but to part ways. Rosen said, in your memories, I am not there because your memories have been tampered with, and the memories you think are true are actually false. Quote. The faces of James and Kaplan became very solemn because he couldn't tell whether what Rosen said was true or false. Why do umbrella companies do this? Because you are infected with the T virus and have not transformed like the zombies on the streets, you have become a good experimental material. Anyone who has entered the hive has more or less been exposed to the original virus through the air, which is the kind that Rosen injected. And because the original virus they came into contact with was airborne, the amount of original virus they ingested was very small. Before the virus begins to wreak havoc on the body, antibodies have already been produced, causing some kind of mutation in the body, which also makes them valuable experimental subjects. It can be said that they are all weakened versions of Rosen's T virus injection process. So, why are you here? Or is our escape here all part of your plan? Rosen shook his head. I can only say that this is really a coincidence. Of course, it doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. In fact, if they hadn't broken into his residence, Rosen would have been looking for Kaplan in a few days. James didn't care, but Kaplan was his appointed computer administrator. I took away the Red Queen host, but my knowledge of computers is only about turning on and off, and even the Red Queen's host may not be able to be turned on. Therefore, there must be a computer expert who knows enough about computers to be responsible. As for James, he is purely a handyman. Although he is an experienced veteran, Rosen does not need his force value. Although James still has doubts about Rosen, living here is at least not life-threatening for the time being. In the following days, Rosen began to study the art of tempering the body and refining the bones. The art of body tempering and bone refining is to use the bones of various beasts to refine and absorb the essence of the beast's bones. Rosen couldn't help but think about it. Could human bones be used? Or maybe the skeletons of zombies? Maybe get some zombies to test it out. I always feel that this body tempering and bone refining technique can be practiced as an evil skill. Get ready, let's go out for a walk after dinner, Rosen said to James and Kaplan. Good. James and Kaplan thought Rosen was going out to find supplies. Living here these days, the three grown men have consumed a lot of supplies. So they also began to prepare firearms. After dinner, the three of them left the apartment building. Alice had just come out of the hospital. She was still wearing a hospital gown. There was not a single person in sight on the cold and windy street. Alice was briefly confused, and her brain was still in chaos at this moment. When a zombie appeared in front of her, all the memories flooded into her mind. The body's instinctive counterattack kicked the zombie in front of her away, and Alice's memory became clearer and clearer. She saw a clothing store on the roadside, changed her clothes, and then found a bloody rider on the roadside. This rider carried a lot of weapons and equipment. Alice equipped all the rider's equipment, then rode off on her Harley-Davidson motorcycle. Soon Alice felt hungry and needed to find something to eat. However, almost all the shops along the way were ransacked and nothing edible could be found. At this moment, Alice saw a church on the side of the road, and there was gunfire from the church. Alice immediately rode over, and as soon as she arrived outside the church, she saw a licker getting inside from the wall outside the church. Alice looked left and right and saw a steep slope. Boom boom. Alice turned the accelerator. She had never done anything so crazy, but she just felt that she could do it. The Harley motorcycle roared towards the steep slope, then rose into the air, and rushed directly towards the side skylight of the church. Bang! The Harley motorcycle crashed through the sunroof and made another beautiful drift. Alice's mind recalled the scene not long ago of Rosen holding a saber to kill the licker. At the same time, Alice also noticed that there were 4 lickers and 3 people in the church. These 4 lickers were all juveniles. Alice's brain was calculating rapidly. At this moment, a licker fell from the ceiling and stood in front of Alice. Alice started the motorcycle and crashed directly into the licker in front of her, while her body rolled upwards. The moment the motorcycle hit the licker, Alice pulled out her gun and fired 2 bullets, hitting the motorcycle's fuel tank. Boom! The liquor was blown to pieces along with the motorcycle. The 3 people in the church were stunned. They did not expect such a strong foreign aid to come. At this moment, another liquor landed on the prayer platform and opened its teeth and claws at Alice. Alice's eyes narrowed, and she drew out her machine gun and fired at the chandelier chain above the liquor. Bang! The chandelier fell down, directly crushing the liquor onto the prayer platform. Alice went up and gave the liquor another loving blow to the head. For the next 2 liquors, Alice once again showed her superb fighting talent and easily defeated the 2 liquors. Alice clearly felt that the memories of these skills did not belong to her. At this time, the 3 survivors in the church also gathered around. The 3 survivors are 2 police officers, one is the hot policewoman Jill in a tube top, one is the black police officer Janice, and the other is in professional attire, the TV host Meryl. She is the only one among the 3 without combat effectiveness. The policewoman stared at Alice and asked, "Who are you?" "Who are you?" Alice asked rhetorically. It is a woman's nature to compare, especially when 2 competing products have the same style. So when the 2 of them looked at each other, their eyes had already begun to examine each other, from their clothes to their facial expressions. At this time, everyone heard another voice coming from outside the church. Everyone became nervous again and stared at the entrance of the church. Rosen walked into the church, followed by James and Kaplan. "Hey, Alice, long time no see." Alice's pupils shrank slightly, then she looked at James and Kaplan, then walked towards Rosen. "Mr. Magician. You still have about 8 hours, Rosen said. "What 6 hours?" Alice asked confused. "At dawn, Umbrella Corporation is going to nuke Raccoon City." When everyone heard this, their expressions changed dramatically. This is impossible. There are still many survivors in Raccoon City. No one cares, Rosen said with a smile. In the past few days, the Umbrella Company has built a 10-meter-high wall outside Raccoon City. Neither zombies nor survivors can leave, so you'd better find a way to leave early. James and Kaplan also looked stunned. James asked, "Luo, aren't we leaving?" "If you don't want to leave, Raccoon City after the nuclear explosion is the real paradise. Why should you leave? You're crazy, that's a nuclear explosion. As a magician, it makes sense to be able to withstand the explosion of a nuclear explosion. It's reasonable. That's bullshit, are you crazy? If you want to leave, I won't stop you, but Kaplan will stay." "Ah, me, why me? Just think that I want to support you when I die," Rosen said. "Luo, please let me go, I don't want to die." "Do you know how many people die every year?" "I don't know why I care about this," Kaplan replied with a sad face. According to a United Nations report, the global death toll last year was 89 million. So what's the direct connection between this and you not letting me go? 89 million people died last year, but not one of them could die in a nuclear explosion. You said you could die in a nuclear explosion. What an honor is that? The expressions of everyone present were wonderful. Especially Kaplan. After spending a few days with Rosen, he didn't realize that Rosen was so crazy. "Luo, what's so special about Kaplan? Why do you want to keep him?" He always felt that Rosen was very mysterious, but he couldn't pinpoint the specific mystery. "Didn't I tell you that I need someone to support me on my back? Why don't you stay with me?" Rosen looked in another direction. "Hundreds of zombies are approaching here now. You are planning to feed the zombies here, or fight them to the end? Let's get out of here first," Alice hurriedly said to everyone. Everyone left the church in a hurry, but Alice found Rosen standing there. "You won't leave. There are a few acquaintances of mine in that group of zombies, and I plan to say hello to them." Everyone was speechless. Rosen's way of thinking was beyond their comprehension. However, when they left the church and looked back, they could see dense zombies in the other direction of the church, surrounding the church. "Madman," Jill muttered. Ever since Rosen arrived, she felt that Rosen was an unreasonable madman. "Leave him alone, it's his business to seek death," Janice said. "He won't die that easily," Alice said. "Do you think he could escape in that situation?" "It's also possible to kill all the zombies," Alice replied. "Is Luo really that powerful?" James asked. Alice looked at James. "Have you forgotten about him? He said that Kaplan and I's memories were tampered with by the Umbrella Company. Do you know about my past?" He is right, your memory has indeed been tampered with, Alice said. But what she didn't make clear was that the memories of James and Kaplan were tampered with by Rosen. Just as everyone was fleeing, a ringtone suddenly rang from the phone booth on the roadside. Everyone looked at me and I looked at you. No one answered the phone and continued on their way. But when they came to the next phone booth, the phone rang again. At this time, everyone finally realized that someone was watching them and trying to communicate with them through the phone booth. Alice thought for a moment, then stepped forward and picked up the phone. Hello, who's there? I'm Ashford, I work for Umbrella Company, and I'm the Director of Virus and Security Management. Are you looking for a way to leave Raccoon City now? A male voice came from the other end of the phone. Who are you? You don't need to worry about who I am. My daughter Angela is missing from Raccoon City Noble School. I need you to help me find her and bring her to the City Hall. Sir, you said your daughter is missing, is it possible? She will be fine. All you need to do now is find her before the company's final decision. I will arrange an escape route for you to leave. After Alice hung up the phone, she turned to Jill and others and told them what was on the phone. After a brief hesitation, everyone decided to go and save Angela. This was their only way out. Everyone came outside the Noble School, and suddenly a tall figure carrying a Vulcan cannon appeared in front of everyone. Alice's perception immediately detected the bad intentions of the visitor. At this moment, the figure suddenly raised the Vulcan cannon and aimed it at Alice and others. Not good. Only then did everyone realize the danger and immediately fled for their lives. The power of the Vulcan cannon has never killed a named character in movies and TV series. It's like Amaterasu's situation in the world of Naruto. Everyone knows that Amaterasu is very powerful. He is known as the #1 physical attack method and can't be extinguished. However, no one has been burned to death. Everyone with a name has a way to avoid it. Alice was running like a wild horse at this moment, and the tall figure was chasing behind her, firing continuously at the same time, and the others also escaped. The more Alice ran, the more panicked she became. Even if she hit the opponent with her several counterattacks, the opponent was like an iron tower and never stopped pursuing. Even if she hits the opponent's legs, the opponent still pursues her unswervingly. The opponent can even break through a 40-centimeter thick wall. This amazing power makes Alice unable to think of any resistance. However, the opponent's speed is still slightly inferior to Alice's. Alice finally escaped from that figure's pursuit by relying on her dexterous movements. At the same time, Jill also found the target of their trip, Angela, in the school. And he also met Carol, who is also a member of the Umbrella security team. Carol and James don't belong to the same department, but they are old acquaintances. Carol and his team members were also abandoned by the Umbrella in Raccoon City. All his team members were killed, and the last team member was cut into pieces by 2 zombie dogs because he saved Jill. Everyone felt very heavy. They found a car on the roadside and rushed to the city hall. Alice glanced at the gauze wrapped around Carol's hand. Have you been bitten? Carol nodded. At this moment, Angela, who was sitting next to her, opened her school bag and took out a small metal box and handed it to Carol. This is. Carol opened the box, which contained a green spiral glass container and a syringe. This is the anti-venom. Alice's eyes lit up and she immediately injected Carol with the anti-venom. Are you familiar with this? I was once a member of Umbrella. I witnessed how the Umbrella Company destroyed the city, and they also injected the virus into me. Alice said. Everyone in the car looked at Alice, who then said, but I'm not infectious. When they arrived near the city hall, they saw a helicopter in the square. However, there were several armed personnel guarding the helicopter. Alice and others easily eliminated the armed men, but when they entered the helicopter, they discovered that it was a trap. By the time they reacted, everyone was already under control. Only Alice still retains freedom of movement, but she is also guarded by several armed men. Alice also saw the big guy who had been chasing her. A man wearing a Bluetooth headset came out and came to Alice. What a perfect creation. Who are you? You can call me Odedfer, I am also you're his surgeon. Odedfer pointed to the big man. Him, was he ever human? It used to be, but now he is called the Tracker. You were all my most outstanding works, Odedfer said, while looking at Alice with burning eyes. Especially you are the perfect combination of T-virus and cells. The combination creates a new DNA helix structure, which is incredible. Its strength, speed, and responsiveness are all breathtaking. You can even call it a new human being. Webnovel turned his head and walked towards the tracker. And now, I need to judge who is better, you or him. This also means which of you is qualified to survive. I think you made a mistake. An unexpected voice came. Alice and others looked towards the source of the voice, only to see Rosen strolling over. James and Kaplan were obviously very happy when they saw Rosen arriving. Carol asked in a low voice, "Is he from our side too?" "Yeah, probably so. Then why is he coming here so arrogantly? At least he should have a weapon, right?" Webnovel looked at Rosen. "Who are you?" "Let me introduce myself. My name is Rosen. I am a person who actively infected the T virus. Of course, I used the original virus and did not bite it by randomly finding an infected person." Rosen said, "I do not agree with the T virus. The combination of the virus and the cells is perfect, and I feel that I am the perfect infected person." Everyone looked at each other, and Webnovel looked at Rosen in surprise. "This is impossible. The toxicity of the original virus is far greater than the toxicity of the virus in the infected person. No one can be safe and sound after being injected with the original virus, unless you have a physique that is dozens of times that of a normal human being. You are constantly producing and updating antibodies." Rosen said, "This is like some viruses that are effective against humans but not against certain large animals. Not only because of the different DNA structures, but also because of the huge amounts of the body, which also means strong resistance. But this is impossible. Before human beings were transformed, it was impossible for such people to exist." Chapter 51. "Sorry, that's just me," Rosen said with a smile. "It's easy to verify whether your words are credible." Webnovel waved his hand and motioned to his men, "Kill him." Da da da. In an instant, dozens of bullets poured into Rosen. Just when everyone thought Rosen was destined to die, the gunfire stopped. The armed man who fired the gun looked at Rosen in shock. At this moment, Rosen was still standing intact. Rosen put down his hands, and bullets fell from his hands. Webnovel looked at Rosen with bright eyes, his face full of surprise and excitement. "Incredible, incredible. It's incredible. I want to live, I want to live. Are you sure your men can take me down? You can block the bullets of one gun, but what if there are 10 guns?" Webnovel looked at Rosen confidently. "That's right. I really can't stop all bullets." Rosen nodded. Rosen had just made a judgment that it was his limit to catch the bullets fired by 3 machine guns with his hands. It is true that 10 machine guns cannot intercept them all. But Rosen still had a smile on his face. "How many caliber bullets do you think I can catch with my body?" Webnovel was stunned for a moment, and then he understood. If Rosen's physique can really reach dozens of times that of ordinary people, then his speed will not only be terrifying, but his defense power must also be amazing. Shot. Da 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 da. Hundreds of bullets were poured on Rosen's body, but they were all easily blocked by Rosen. At this moment, an RPG came straight towards Rosen. Boom. Rosen put his hands in front of his face. He didn't want to be punished by RPG. Although the power of RPG is only that of sea-level ninjutsu. When the smoke cleared and Rosen appeared in front of everyone unscathed, everyone at the scene was so shocked that they couldn't open their mouths from ear to ear. Carol looked at James and Kaplan beside him. "Has he always been so powerful?" "In fact, we only know now," James said helplessly. Rosen clapped his palms and wiped away the ashes on his palms. At this moment, the tracker suddenly came to Rosen and reached out to grab Rosen's head. Oops. Alice and others were shocked when they saw this. Especially Alice. She knows how terrifying the tracker is, and it is definitely not something humans can fight against. But in Rosen's eyes, the tracker's power was like that of a child. The next moment, a black shadow spread from Rosen's feet and quickly connected with the pursuer. Half of the tracker's body is covered in black, just like when Heiju uses the art of dependence to control others. Everyone felt inexplicably creepy when they saw this scene. Gluttony, who was occupying the tracker's body at this moment, grinned. "This body is really good. I haven't felt eating in a long time." Gluttony's appetizing eyes glanced at everyone present. Hoo. At this moment, 3 armed helicopters appeared above everyone's heads. "Ha ha, keep going, let me see if you can block the mechanical crystal. Audiobook shouted excitedly. The cannon on the gunship is more powerful than the Vulcan cannon used by the pursuer. Any carbon-based creature will be wiped out in the face of this kind of cannon. Rosen glanced at the 3 armed helicopters, raised his right hand, and pointed 2 fingers at one of the armed helicopters. Light escape. Laser, laser. In full view of everyone, the golden beam of light shot through the air and instantly penetrated the armed helicopter on the far left. Then the helicopter lost control and crashed into the armed helicopter in the middle. The armed helicopter in the middle turned into a ball of fire and exploded in the air. The flames of the explosion completely engulfed the gunship on the right. Audiobook opened his mouth wide, his face full of astonishment. You, what on earth are you? You are definitely not human. What on earth are you? I'm just a mortal who wants to become a god. Rosen said with a smile, but this farce ends here. As he said that, Rosen pointed at Audiobook and said, whoosh. Rosen directly penetrated Audiobook's knee, and Audiobook fell directly to the ground. Come and save me, come and save me. I'm now. Audiobook hurriedly called for help via Bluetooth. It's useless. All the base stations around here have been destroyed by me. Do you think you won? It won't be long before a tactical nuclear bomb with a yield of 5,000 tons will arrive, and everything will be wiped out by mankind's most powerful weapon, even you. You monster. Only 5,000 tons. I thought it was 50 million tons. Rosen was actually quite disappointed. After all, 5,000 tons was still possible with conventional weapons. For example, the father of bombs and the mother of bombs are both as powerful as small nuclear bombs. Rosen untied everyone. You also heard that the nuclear bomb is coming, so you'd better leave quickly. Luo, are you really not going to leave? That's a nuclear weapon, Kaplan persuaded. As a magician, it makes sense to resist nuclear explosions. Everyone couldn't help but complain in their hearts. It's so reasonable to bear the nuclear explosion. Are you really not going to leave? James also asked. I don't know if I can withstand a nuclear explosion, but you certainly can't, so hurry up and leave. Everyone boarded the helicopter, and Rosen watched the helicopter take off. Obtain 30 time and space points. Rosen curled his lips. It seemed that not much had changed this time. Think about it, last time in the hive, James, Kaplan and other security team members all died in the hive, and Rosen rescued them all, so there are naturally more time and space points. A missile trailing a trailing flame passed through the mountains and forests, passed over the city, and flew over the municipal center. Rosen put his hands together, reincarnated I mode, 70% chakra. The chi of Jingjae, innate. At the same time, the 10 rings continuously released colorful radiance, forming a bubble that looked extremely unstable around Rosen's body. This is Rosen's ultimate output. Boom. At the moment when the nuclear bomb exploded, Rosen transformed into a golden crow. Light escape. The great sun and the golden crow. The golden crow spread its wings and swallowed the little sun transformed from the nuclear explosion in one gulp. The terrifying nuclear energy was disintegrating the golden crow's body, and it was also disintegrating Rosen's physical body. Rosen's physical body relies on the Uzumaki immortal's body and is constantly self-healing. If a piece of flesh and blood in the body is annihilated, a new piece will quickly grow. Flesh and blood are constantly being annihilated, reorganized, and reunited. Finally, the nuclear explosion completely subsided. Rosen fell heavily to the ground and was seriously injured. But even though he was seriously injured, Rosen gained a lot. The Great Sun Golden Crow of Light Escape and another ultimate secret, 10 Days Linkong were finally perfected. The Great Sun Golden Crow and Tenri Linkong in the past were all superficial. It seems powerful, but in fact it all relies on Rosen's original strength. Until now, after Rosen experienced nuclear fission personally, Rosen finally understood the secret of it. Under the suppression of the Great Sun Golden Crow, the power of the nuclear explosion was far less than its original destructive power. And all the zombies in Raccoon City belong to him, and he doesn't want to be harmed by a nuclear bomb from the top of the umbrella. At this moment, all the senior executives of the umbrella were dumbfounded. They saw through satellites that the nuclear explosion, let alone destroying Raccoon City, did not even achieve 1% of the expected damage. What's going on? Why is the power of this nuclear bomb so small? Or it is not a nuclear bomb at all. Because when the nuclear explosion occurred, all the electronic equipment was damaged, and it was as bright as a small sun, so it was impossible to see what happened. Therefore, the top management of the umbrella could only observe through high-altitude satellites. However, after the nuclear explosion, Raccoon City was still intact, which made them all doubt themselves. That might have been a dud. The senior umbrella executives who said this did not believe it themselves. After all, the pictures sent back by high-altitude satellites showed that the nuclear bomb had exploded, but it did not produce the expected effect. Therefore, they think it is more likely that the nuclear bombs sold to them by the government were adulterated. What now? Launch another nuke. Let's do this for now. After all, nuclear bombs are also very important to us. As long as we hold nuclear bombs in our hands, even the government will not dare to do anything to us to speed up the spread of the virus. Of course, the government knows what happened in Raccoon City, and it also knows that it is closely related to the umbrella company. But now, 30% of the top officials in the government are supported by umbrella companies. And they also know that they have nuclear bombs in their hands, so the government has nothing to do now. Once the matter is exposed, the umbrella company breaks the pot and throws a few nuclear bombs directly, and no one can handle it. So the government will naturally hide it for the umbrella company. And Umbrella Corporation is now waiting for zombie viruses to break out all over the world. As long as the world is plunged into a zombie apocalypse, the Umbrella Corporation won't need to worry about who is putting pressure on them anymore. And they have long been preparing for the end of the world, and then they can carry out the second phase of their plan. Rosen returned to his residence. The power of a 5,000-ton nuclear explosion was almost as powerful as the nine-tailed beast Jade, but the energy in it was completely different, more violent and more dangerous. Moreover, nuclear radiation is also a very troublesome energy. There is still a large amount of nuclear radiation in Rosen's body, corroding Rosen's body. Rosen had to use his life force to speed up his body's self-healing. At this time, Rosen suddenly felt that the Mangekyo Sharingan of the three shadow demons of jealousy, greed, and gluttony seemed to be moving. Rosen immediately summoned the three shadow demons, and the three shadow demons' Mangekyo Sharingan began to rotate crazily. And Rosen also discovered that the nuclear radiation remaining in his body was also absorbed by the Mangekyo Sharingan. Rosen thought, could it be that the Mangekyo Sharingan can absorb nuclear radiation? At this moment, the jealous Mangekyo Sharingan took the lead in breaking through, and the lines in his pupils became more complicated. Rosen felt that his body and chakra were strengthened again, and his force value increased from 700,000 to 900,000. The Sharingan of the Uchiha clan is like this. Every time the Sharingan is advanced, the host's physique and chakra will be greatly improved. Gluttony's Mangekyo Sharingan also advanced at this time, becoming the Eternal Kaleidoscope, and its force value increased from 900,000 to 1 million. Finally, there is the Greedy Eyes upgrade, which increases the force value from 1 million to 1.1 million. In order to evolve Uchiha Madara's Eternal Kaleidoscope into the Samsara Eye, Rosen injected Senju Hashirama's cells, and now the Senju Hashirama's cells are being combined with the Uzumaki Sen's human body. This is an advancement that goes back to the origin. The chakra in the body is rolling, constantly filling the energy required for this advancement, and then even the chi of Jingjae begins to be absorbed. Rosen immediately took out the Grail stone and provided it to his body. Gradually, two small bulges appeared on Rosen's forehead. Rosen touched the bulge on his forehead, and at the same time his hair turned silver white. He seems to be evolving towards the Otsutsuki clan. Rosen doesn't mind becoming Otsutsuki, but before returning to the Marvel world, he must remember to dye his hair back. At the same time, Rosen discovered that 3 pairs of eternal kaleidoscopes and a pair of pure eyes were evolving, but this evolution did not happen overnight. It was a step-by-step process, just like the pair of eternal kaleidoscopes in The Lord of Dance, which he used for nearly 10 years. After a while, it evolved into the Samsara Eye. Moreover, 4 pairs of eyes evolve at the same time, which consumes a lot of energy. Rosen sat in the living room like this for 3 years. During this period, Rosen also developed a special pupil technique, which was specifically aimed at zombies. However, this pupil technique was not performed by himself, but by the 10 tails. During this period, the world outside had been turned upside down. Under the intentional spread of the protective umbrella, 99% of the cities in the world have fallen, the population has dropped by 99%, and the remaining people are just hanging on. A tall figure walked into the living room. This tall figure was the tracker, and before he was transformed into this, he seemed to be named Matt. Rosen opened his eyes and glanced at Matt. You should have recovered your past memories, right? Matt opened his mouth and made a hoarse voice. He had no idea what he was saying. His vocal cords had been completely destroyed by the virus. I'll teach you something and you'll do things for me from now on. Aha, Matt nodded. Rosen stood up and glanced at the moonlight outside the window. It's time to officially start my plan. Matt followed Rosen to the Civic Center building. Because of the nuclear explosion here, the Civic Center building was in pieces, and there was a large crater of tens of meters on the ground. However, the surrounding vegetation grew extremely lush. Rosen walked into the ruins of the Civic Center building, and then released the larval 10 tails in the twisted space. Roar! When the larval 10 tails appeared, Matt was so frightened that he took a few steps back. Although he was transformed into a monster, he was still nothing compared to the young 10 tails in front of him. That huge mountain-like body made Matt feel huge amounts of pressure. The young 10 tails stretched out its head and rubbed against Rosen's body. Rosen reached out and touched the head of the young 10 tails, and then began to form seals. The art of 6 paths. The sacred tree. As the Rosen seal ended, the body of the young 10 tails began to change. Its huge amounts of body began to turn into a wooden structure, its 10 tentacles turned into tree roots and penetrated into the ground. Parts of its body grew out of tree poles, branches, and leaves, and its main trunk broke through the ceiling of the municipal center. Rumble. The juvenile 10 tails transformed into the form of a sacred tree, and huge amounts of the main pole have reached a height of 100 meters. The golden reincarnation eye on Rosen's forehead opened, and at the same time, his hands formed seals again, the art of 6 paths, the sacred tree, and the art of pollen. This is a technique specially developed by Rosen to adapt to the world of biohazard and specifically target zombies. Rosen didn't want to use Infinite Tsukuyomi, and he didn't have the Samsara Eye either. Infinite Tsukuyomi is an indiscriminate attack that drags all living creatures into the illusion. Even if it is hidden underground, it cannot avoid Infinite Tsukuyomi. Therefore, Rosen can only develop this kind of eye technique that relies on the release of the reincarnation eye. At the same time, a huge amount of flowers bloomed at the top of the sacred tree, and the flowers released a burst of pollen. Start attracting zombies from all over Raccoon City. The zombies in Raccoon City suddenly roared towards the sky, and then moved towards the sacred tree. When the first zombie came under the canopy of the sacred tree, a vine hung down from the tree and wrapped the zombie into a rice dumpling, which was then lifted up and hung on the treetop. As more and more zombies arrive, each zombie has the same fate. There are even lickers and zombie dogs, which are also attracted by the pollen of the sacred tree. They all seem to be on a pilgrimage, completely unaware of what they were facing. There are millions of zombies in Raccoon City, and pollen is still spreading to more distant areas. More and more zombies sense the pollen and gather towards Raccoon City. No matter what is in the way, not even mountains and rivers can stop them. One day later, the first batch of zombies had been completely digested and turned into nutrients for the sacred tree, which also became taller. Aha! Matt made a sound. What are you asking me to do? Matt nodded and asked Rosen with curious eyes. Me, I'm saving the world, Rosen said. Rosen looked at the sacred tree, but there was not much joy on his face. Although everything seems to be going well, he is now facing a problem of huge amounts of money. The sacred tree needs to devour an Otsutsuki clan before it can bear the final fruit. Everything the sacred tree is doing now is just the process of growing from childhood to maturity. If there were no Otsutsuki clan, then the sacred tree would lack a crucial advancement. But there is no other way now. Let the sacred tree grow first. Maybe if there are enough zombies, the sacred tree can grow the sacred tree fruit. And now he also needs to clear out the umbrella company. During the 3 years he was in seclusion, senior executives of the umbrella company gradually settled in the hive, and it was time to liquidate their sins. In the desert area of Las Vegas, due to the dry climate and the fact that it is far away from the city, the number of zombies here is relatively small. Alice, Carol, James, Kaplan and others established a temporary base here, and they also recruited many refugees, mainly children. On the desert road, a motorcycle was speeding along. Alice constantly controls the motorcycle to avoid various obstacles on the road. Finally, after less than half an hour, Alice finally returned to the temporary base. Alice, how are you? Did you find the supplies? No, now everyone is informed that we must leave here. A large wave of corpses has appeared in the direction of Las Vegas, and the direction they are heading towards is our side. Alice said in a hurry. How much time do we have? In less than half an hour, those zombies were very fast, and they all seemed to have evolved. Alice said. Carol's face was solemn. Where's the quantity? It's impossible to calculate, probably more than 100,000. Carol and Alice immediately went to gather everyone. But at this time, there was already a sky full of dust on the sand dunes in the distance. This made their emotions even more tense. By the time they gathered everyone and were about to leave, the tide of corpses was already close at hand. All the combatants were so nervous that they forgot to breathe. Everyone was holding weapons and prepared for a desperate fight. But at this moment, these zombies just ran past their car and did not attack them. Everyone looked at each other, wondering what was going on. Should these zombies become vegetarians? Where is that direction? Alice asked. For some reason, her body seemed to have the urge to follow the zombies in that direction. Have no idea. Now the governments of the entire world have been shut down, so they only know their approximate location at this moment. That should be the direction of Raccoon City, right? Kaplan said suddenly. Everyone realized that something had happened in Raccoon City. However, everyone subconsciously believed that it was probably the umbrella company that was causing trouble again. Nowadays, their strength is barely able to protect themselves, and they are still unable to compete with the umbrella company. So none of them thought about running to Raccoon City now. Alert! Alert! The upper level of the hive has been invaded by unknown zombies. The White Queen's alarm sounded from the hive. The armed forces with protective umbrella immediately went to stop and destroy the invading zombies. When these armed men came to the entrance, they found that the zombies seemed to be soaked in white paint. Moreover, these zombies will have tentacle-like vines sprouting from their bodies, which are very lethal. Rosen is at the end of the zombie group. These are the white zombies transformed by the sacred tree. They don't have the art of mayfly and the art of dependence, but they do have wood escape. Although it is not very powerful, it is extremely lethal to ordinary people. And after being transformed into white Zetsu zombies, their speed and strength have changed by huge amounts. Da da da. The armed men fired wildly at the Baiju zombies. But the effect is very poor. The self-healing power of Baiju zombie is too strong. Only hitting the head can kill them, while hitting other parts of the body will cause them to recover quickly. Of course, they also have some disadvantages, such as they can no longer infect ordinary people with viruses through external wounds. The front lines are retreating steadily, and these white zombies have become difficult to eliminate with conventional weapons. Within the hive, it is impossible for the umbrella company to use weapons of mass destruction. After all, the hive is no longer a laboratory, but a living area. A large number of high-level umbrella workers have moved into the hive, and they are now waiting for the dormancy area under the hive to be completed before they enter hibernation. Rosen quietly came to the former central control room, and even the White Queen did not notice Rosen's whereabouts. Until Rosen came to the central control room and came to the White Queen's host. There are more than a dozen staff responsible for computer maintenance in the central control room at this moment. White Queen suddenly noticed a strange face appearing in the central control room. White Queen's projection appears in the central control room. The staff in the central control room all looked at White Queen in surprise. Even though they are all administrators, in fact their job is to maintain White Queen's programs and hosts. They all need to obey the White Queen's orders. So when the White Queen suddenly appeared, they all thought that the White Queen was going to issue some mission. Who are you? Asked the White Queen. Rosen grinned, raised his hand, and all the lines on the White Queen's host were unplugged. In an instant, the entire hive was plunged into darkness. The umbrella-armed personnel who were still on the front line resisting the White Jew zombies were immediately stunned. Originally, it was very difficult for them to resist the Baiju zombies, but suddenly the lights were turned off. The battlefield turned directly into darkness, so how could we fight? Then screams came one after another. The white zombies quickly broke through the defense line of the armed personnel, and what followed was a massacre. Although the backup power supply was quickly activated, the front line was completely out of control, and the white zombies were killing people crazily. Alarms sounded throughout the hive, and everyone was worried, especially those at the top of the umbrella. They thought that the doomsday outside had nothing to do with them, and they could be carefree and wait for the end of the world to end. But he never thought that such a terrifying monster as Baiju Zombie would appear. Security Team Captain Wesker asked, "Drive Isaac, the front line has been completely lost. What should we do now?" "We retreat from the secret passage." Isaac shook his head. He was not a combatant, so there was nothing he could do when faced with a large number of Baiju zombies. "Do we need to notify others?" "No need, it's unnecessary for them to live anyway," Isaac said. Isaac and Wesker quickly left the command center and headed for the secret passage. But when they arrived at the secret passage, they found that it was occupied by Baiju zombies. When the two of them saw this, they turned around and were about to leave. But as soon as they turned around, they saw a large number of Baiju zombies behind them, blocking the way they came. But what surprised the two of them was that these white zombies did not attack them immediately. As a scientist, Isaac was also observing these white zombies in this desperate situation. These white zombies have no mouths, their eyes are pure white, and their hands can turn into vines and tree roots. There is no doubt that this is a brand new zombie species. He once presided over the manufacture and design of many zombie varieties, such as the liquor, which he designed. There are also classic tyrants. Wesker is ATX-1 tyrant. The T-virus he injected is not the T-fear virus. And Wesker is still controllable, with thoughts and memories before the infection. It can be said that Wesker is a more successful work than Alice, but Wesker is a type that cannot be mass-produced. Isaac feels that the white zombies are even more special. The white zombies show some plant characteristics. This is also the direction that various research institutions in the current umbrella work lack. Isaac is very interested in these white zombies. At this moment, the white zombies suddenly separated from the road. Isaac and Wesker were both stunned for a moment. Immediately afterwards, a person was seen walking over from behind the Baiju zombies. Isaac was shocked. He originally thought that the white zombies were produced by natural mutations of the T-virus. Now I see that the man in front of me can control Baiju zombies, which means that Baiju zombies are artificial zombies. Rosen was also looking at Isaac and Wesker. At this moment, Wesker suddenly rushed towards Rosen. His speed is very fast, and his short distance burst is almost 10 times that of ordinary people. He has reached Rosen in less than 0.1 seconds from a distance of several meters. When he reached out and grabbed Rosen's neck, Wesker's movements suddenly stopped. Wesker looked at Rosen in horror. He didn't understand at all why his body couldn't move, but his body kept reaching out. What did you do to me?" "I need researchers," Rosen said, looking at Isaac. Isaac glanced at the white zombies around him. "You can create these zombies by yourself, do you still need me?" "This is not made through technological means," Rosen said. "Not a technological method." Isaac was even more confused. How could these zombies be created without technological means? "Do you need an assistant?" Rosen asked again. "What research do you need me to do?" Isaac asked rhetorically. "Clone," Rosen said. "Umbrella Company has this technology and it is very mature. In the original work, Alice has been mass-produced, and Isaac himself has a clone. When he went to sleep, the clone thought he was the original body." "I need to clone myself," Rosen said. "This technology is not difficult, but it requires a lot of supplies and assistance." Rosen glanced at Wesker, and Wesker was immediately free. "Go and select the people in the hive. Those who have studied ability will stay, and those who have not studied ability will die." Wesker looked at Isaac, who nodded. One day later, the hive returned to calm, and Isaac discovered that although these white zombies had the characteristics of zombies, they were very good assistants. Not only can he fight, but he can also execute some complex commands. Dozens of researchers are left in the hive to create clones for Rosen. Rosen looked at the old woman in a wheelchair in front of him, or rather a girl. Alicia Marcus is now 12 years old, but her face has the appearance of a 90-year-old. She is the cause of everything and the effect of everything. The founder of the umbrella company is James Marcus, and Isaac is Marcus's assistant and partner. Marcus founded the umbrella company in order to treat his daughter's aging disease. The umbrella company protects Alicia, so she also has the highest authority of the umbrella. Alice is Alicia's clone. The original intention of the T-virus was to treat Alicia, so the T-virus was genetically modified to be an excellent match for Alicia. Because of this, the T-virus and Alice will have a special combination. Webnovel said that Alice's cells were perfectly combined with the T-virus because the T-virus originally had a chimeric effect with Alice's genes. But Marcus's original intentions were huge amounts of different from those of other shareholders. Because other shareholders see not only the therapeutic effect of the T-virus, but also huge amounts of military value. So the final result of Marcus was that he was killed by several shareholders. For these people, it is so easy to cause a plane crash. The reason why Alicia was not killed was that after Marcus died, she automatically obtained the highest authority of the umbrella company. This authority was not the right to speak at the shareholders' meeting, but the right to control the White Queen and the Red Queen. All bases and laboratories of the umbrella company have an artificial intelligence, and these artificial intelligences are copy programs of the White Queen and the Red Queen. As long as Alicia is still under the supervision of two artificial intelligences, no one can attack Alicia. So, do you have the final say here now? Yes, little girl. Rosen nodded. I want to make a deal with you. What deal? Alicia asked. I will cure your disease, but the condition is that you give me the authority of the umbrella company. So you're also here to plot against the umbrella company? No. Rosen shook his head. At this moment, the 4 shadow demons emerged from Rosen's shadow. What I need is not an umbrella company. Alicia saw the 4 shadow demons with a look of shock on her face. What is this? She even wondered if this was some kind of high-tech stereoscopic projection. Magic, Rosen said. I can quell the doomsday caused by your father, but I need more powerful magic power. What does this have to do with the authority of the umbrella company? Times have changed. I need to use technology to make me stronger, which requires a lot of materials. I still can't fully believe your answer. Although Alicia is a child. But she has experienced a lot and knows the evil of human nature. Let me take you to see my pet, Rosen said. Immediately, Rosen pushed Alicia's wheelchair and left the hive. As soon as she left the hive, Alicia saw an incredible tall tree in the center of the city. The giant tree's trunk is several times taller than the tallest building in the city. Rosen took Alicia to the sacred tree. Alicia looked at the towering tree in front of her with incredible eyes. Under the canopy of the sacred tree, thousands of zombies were hanging. At the same time, there is an endless stream of zombies coming from all directions. Then vines will extend from the tree, winding these zombies into rice dumplings and hanging them under the canopy. This scene looked very strange, but it all appeared completely before Alicia's eyes. Rosen's hands form a seal, the art of 6 paths. 10 tails. The next moment, the sacred tree began to deform, eventually turning into a 1,000-meter giant beast. Alicia opened her mouth wide, once again shocked by this giant beast. Incredible. It's incredible that such incredible existence actually exists in this world. The 10 tails has devoured millions of zombies, and it has also advanced from a larva to a mature body. The body shape has also grown from the original tens of meters to the current body shape of 1,000 meters. This is my pet, Rosen said. It can devour all zombies. It can release a cost that attracts zombies, attracting all zombies within a radius of 3,000 kilometers. But this is not enough. The goal is to eliminate zombies in the entire world, so it needs to evolve. How to evolve? Alicia asked. Eat me up, Rosen said. Alicia's eyes widened and her face was filled with astonishment. Why? I have a special contractual relationship with it. If it wants to go further, it needs to devour me. But I don't want to die, so I need to use current technology to clone my body and provide it to it. What's it called? The 10 tails. It has 2 forms, beast and sacred tree. Of course, it also has other forms, but that is a fighting form. I can give you secondary authority until all zombies in the world are wiped out. Alicia said. If you can really quell this zombie apocalypse, then I will transfer the highest authority of the umbrella company to you. Okay. Rosen nodded and looked at the 10 tails. Give me some life force. A branch grew out of the 10 tails limbs and stretched out in front of Rosen and Alicia. A flower the size of a fist file grew on the branch, and the flower produced a fruit. Although this fruit is also a fruit from the divine tree, it is not what Rosen needs. It can be directly promoted to the divine tree fruit of the blood succession snare. This fruit is only a chakra fruit at most. Rosen picked the chakra fruit, which exuded dark red light and also contained powerful chakra energy. Eat it. Alicia took the fruit. She didn't hesitate and bit on the fruit directly. The fruit is neither delicious nor unpleasant, it is bland and tasteless, but the juice is quite abundant. But the moment Alicia swallowed the pulp, powerful power indeed emitted from her body. Even though Alicia doesn't know how to see inside, she can still feel it clearly. The pulp is repairing her body in a magical way. Alicia looked at her withered arms, which were becoming tender again. At the same time, the wrinkles on her face were fading away, and the skin flakes were falling off. She became a 12-year-old girl. Her feet began to become stronger. Alicia propped up her body and moved her legs carefully. Alicia's face was full of shock, and she was also very excited. From the day she was born, she has never truly experienced a complete childhood and life. She spent most of her time in a wheelchair and in a hospital room. And now, she finally has the opportunity to experience real life. You feel the energy in your body, right? Is this magic? You can think so, Rosen said. Anyway, to this world, it doesn't matter whether it's magic or not, it can be anything. With magic power, can I also learn magic? There is no doubt that it is difficult for anyone to resist the supernatural. Of course, but you have to call me teacher first. Teacher. Rosen turned the 10 tails into a sacred tree again and continued to devour zombies. Rosen taught Alicia ninjutsu while paying attention to the progress of cloning. Mr. Luo, we have completed the cultivation of 6 clones so far. Isaac said. Take me to see these 6 clones. Isaac took Rosen to 6 cylindrical containers. At this moment, floating in the container, a naked body looked exactly like Rosen. Rosen put his palm against the outer wall of the container, then shook his head, walked to the next container, and shook his head again. Isaac didn't understand what Rosen meant. There should be no problem with clones, right? Why did Rosen react like this? Today's umbrella company cloning technology is so mature that it is absolutely impossible to make mistakes. These clones are indeed perfect replicas of Rosen's body. But they didn't clone Rosen's Otsutsuki bloodline. Rosen came to the 4th container and once again stretched out his hand against the outer wall of the container. Suddenly, Rosen felt a trace of throbbing blood power. Rosen raised his head and saw the clone in the container. There was a not very obvious bulge on the left side of his forehead. Very, very thin Otsutsuki bloodline. With this thin Otsutsuki bloodline, even feeding it to the 10 tails would not be successful. Rosen checked the remaining 2 clones and found that neither had any Otsutsuki bloodline. Then he said to Isaac, send this clone to my laboratory and destroy the other 5 clones. Isaac was curious about the difference between this clone and the other clones. At least with the naked eye, it is almost impossible to tell the difference between this clone and other clones. Within the hive, Rosen also has a laboratory of his own. Not long after, the clone was sent to Rosen's laboratory. Rosen looked at his clone, feeling very strange. However, Rosen quickly calmed down, placed his palm on the clone's chest, and then began to activate his own Otsutsuki bloodline, attracting the trace of Otsutsuki bloodline in the clone's body. After a moment, a drop of blood seeped out from the clone's chest. Rosen raised his hand to pull the drop of blood and floated it into the air. After Rosen extracted the Otsutsuki bloodline from the clone, he destroyed the clone. Now Isaac can create 6 clones a month. If he follows this pace, he may not be able to accumulate a complete Otsutsuki bloodline in 10 years. Rosen found Isaac again. Speed up the cultivation of clones. Mr. Luo, can you tell me if you have any special requirements for the clone you want? Bloodline. Rosen replied. There is a special bloodline in my body. Although what Rosen said was very general, he knew that Isaac would definitely understand. As an expert in biology and genetics, Isaac knows that some genes are dominant genes and some are recessive genes. Just like a black man's dark skin, this is the dominant gene. There are also some genetic diseases, which are recessive genes. After Isaac knew the direction, he knew which direction to research. Isaac made clones again the next month, and this time he made 20 clones of Rosen. One of the clones had silver-white hair. Isaac conducted various tests on this clone and finally discovered a mysterious genetic sequence in this clone. He originally wanted to use cloning and breeding technology to conduct targeted breeding and cloning of this mysterious gene sequence. But the results were without exception, all failed. This set of genetic sequence samples cannot be cultivated individually and can only be produced through cloning. Moreover, the proportion of the special gene sequences produced cannot be controlled at all. Some are more, some are less, and some are not at all. Rosen continued to extract the Otsutsuki bloodline from clones with Otsutsuki's bloodline. In the world of Naruto, Shishuin is eager to find a container. To this end, a large number of outstanding biological scientists have been assembled to continuously develop in the direction of biological research. However, Rosen took a different approach and accumulated Otsutsuki's bloodline by accumulating small amounts into large amounts. Of course, the purposes of both sides are different. Rosen wants to create a big tree that is destined to be swallowed, so there is no need to consider whether it can withstand the powerful force or how long it can last. What Rosen needs is enough Otsutsuki bloodline, and then he can feed it to the 10 tails at once. Seizon, on the other hand, needs a long-term physical body with a high enough upper limit. Isaac suddenly had an idea, whether his body could produce this kind of gene sequence. Is this really Raccoon City? Carol looked at the city in front of him, which was covered by the shadow of a towering tree for most of the area, with a look of wonder on his face. 6 years. It has been 6 years since the T-virus broke out. They also wandered outside for 6 years. In the first 2 or 3 years, they could still cope with it. But as time went by, the supplies outside became less and less, and the entire team began to fall into a desperate situation. Finally, with Alice's approval, she finally decided to return to Raccoon City. At least Raccoon City has one last glimmer of hope. The hope in her heart was Rosen. But when they walked back, they found that there were very few zombies in many cities, as if there were forces taking the initiative to clean up the zombies. The closer you get to Raccoon City, the fewer zombies there are. Especially in the cities surrounding Raccoon City, there is not a single zombie. When they arrived outside Raccoon City, they were even more shocked by the incredible big tree. That big tree is so tall that you can see the giant tree reaching into the sky from dozens of kilometers away. When they walked into Raccoon City, they found that many people had gathered here and a town had formed. At this moment, several vines suddenly hung down from their heads. Alice suddenly felt the danger and immediately rolled forward to avoid the vines. The vine did not attack other people, but pursued Alice relentlessly. Alice whipped out her saber and cut off a vine with one stroke, but the vine regrown at the broken spot and still pursued Alice. At this time, a nearby resident saw the situation here. When he saw the sacred tree chasing Alice, he immediately shouted, "The sacred tree is attacking this woman, and this woman is infected." Everyone kept their distance, and no one went to help Alice. Alice kept avoiding and resisting, but how could she fight against the sacred tree alone? No matter how many knots the vine is cut into, the sacred tree can grow back. Finally, Alice was wrapped in vines. At this moment, a column of water shot out. The torrent of water was so swift and violent that it instantly cut off the vines entangled with Alice. The vines continued to attack Alice, and a figure stood in front of Alice. The vine paused for a moment, then slowly shrank back. Alice looked at the girl in front of her. "Who are you?" The girl turned around, and Alice's eyes froze instantly. "Why does this girl look so similar to me?" The girl was also looking at Alice. "Are you Alice? Do you know me?" Alice was even more curious, but this girl looked so much like herself that it was impossible to say it didn't matter. "Let's go see my teacher." Alice hesitated slightly and looked at her companions. Alicia glanced at everyone. "Come along, you all know my teacher too." Alicia led everyone to Rosen's residence. When they arrived in front of the apartment building, Alice and others had already guessed who they were going to see. Just then, Matt walked out of the apartment building. When everyone saw Matt, they immediately became nervous. After all, they remembered that Matt had hunted them down. Especially Alice, who was almost mentally traumatized by Matt. Arriving at Rosen's residence, everyone saw Rosen again. In 6 years, Rosen has not changed at all, but Alice and others are full of dust. Alicia stood behind Rosen, and Rosen looked at everyone. Long time no see, Alice, James, Kaplan. Kaplan regretted a little. If he had known that Raccoon City had changed so much, he should have accepted Rosen's invitation to stay. Luo, long time no see. Luo, what is the relationship between this girl and me? Alice asked straight to the point. Rosen looked at Alice, and then at Alicia beside him. Alicia took a step forward and said, "Hello, clone." "What do you mean? I'm not someone's clone. I'm just me." Alice didn't believe Alicia's words. After all, she looked much older than Alicia. How could she be Alicia's clone? Do you have no memory of your childhood at all? This is because. Bumped, right, Alicia interrupted. You are indeed my clone, and you were cloned just before the T-virus broke out. All your memories are fabricated, and because of technology immature, you have a very short memory and cannot make up more memories, including your non-existent sister. I have wanted to have a sister since I was a child, which is why there is a sister in your memory. Quote. Rosen clapped his hands. Okay, what Alicia said is true. Although you are a clone, you are healthier than Alicia, and you are also an individual now, so there is no need to worry about your origin. Quote. What is that big tree outside? Why is it attacking me? Alice asked. That, my pet, it attacks all infected people. Rosen said. You know your situation yourself, so I don't need to say more. There are no zombies in Raccoon City or surrounding cities. Is it because of that tree? Yes, Rosen nodded. Today's sacred tree has grown to nearly 10,000 meters, and it has swallowed nearly 100 million zombies. This is a number that is impossible to achieve in the ninja world. Today's sacred tree has entered a super mature state. Even the complete 10 tails in the ninja world is much worse than Rosen's. Now all it takes is swallowing the big tube wood to bear the fruit of the sacred tree. Luo, do you still need me to work for you? Kaplan asked. Of course, Rosen nodded. Rosen plans to take away the Red Queen console, so he needs to learn computer knowledge, and Kaplan will undoubtedly be a good teacher. Alice and others returned to Raccoon City, but it had no impact on Rosen. Rosen is still carrying out his plan step by step. In the 7th year, the sacred tree swallowed 200 million zombies, and the pollen radiation range reached 5,000 kilometers. The sacred tree also reached a height of 20,000 meters, and Rosen finally accumulated enough Otsutsuki bloodline. In the dead of night, Rosen came to the sacred tree and saw the art of 6 paths and the 10-tailed form. The body of the sacred tree squirmed and transformed into a 10-tailed form. In the 10-tailed form, its length reached 5,000 meters and its height reached 3,000 meters. Rosen took out Otsutsuki's bloodline, and a large ball of blood-red liquid appeared in front of the 10 tails. The 10 tails opened its mouth and swallowed Otsutsuki's blood. After swallowing the blood of Otsutsuki, the Magatama Samsara eye in the 10-tailed one eye began to rotate. At the same time, the full moon in the sky also turned into the pattern of the Magatama Samsara eye. Immediately, the 10 tails automatically transformed back into the form of the sacred tree, but the crown of the sacred tree completely shrunk, not a single leaf or branch was left, and a bud appeared on the top of the sacred tree, and the bud quickly grew in size and bloomed. Rosen looked at the flower with burning eyes. That flower was definitely the most gorgeous flower he had ever seen in his life. But the flower is short-lived and fades away in an instant. The moment the flowers wither, a fruit tree grows in the middle. Rosen flew to high altitude and picked the fruit of the sacred tree. This fruit was originally more than 10 meters file size, but after falling into Rosen's hands, it automatically became a fist file size. Rosen swallowed the fruit in one gulp, and the moment the fruit entered his body, it began to change Rosen's body. The golden reincarnation eye on Rosen's forehead suddenly opened to the maximum, reincarnation mode, 100% chakra. At the same time, 12 Magatama appeared around the pupil of the golden reincarnation eye, surrounding the pupil. The 4 shadow demons, 3 pairs of eternal kaleidoscopes and a pair of white eyes have also begun their final evolution. 12 Tao-seeking jade appeared around Rosen, and the chakra in his body was spinning like a vortex, expanding and accelerating. Rosen's force value was directly increased from 1.15 million to 3 million. This kind of growth is a huge improvement. Although the numerical value of 1.15 million force points and 3 million force points is nearly 3 times different, the combat power is more than 10 times different. The 10 Rosens before eating the fruit of the sacred tree were no match for the Rosen after eating the fruit. The increase in lifespan is not much. From the original 650 years to 1,000 years, 1,000 years of life should be a threshold. In the process of Rosen evolving into the blood successor snare, the Magatama reincarnated eye on his forehead also derived a unique pupil technique, Dalwoshan. The art of the 6 paths. The 10-tailed coffin seal. A suction force came from the Magatama Tensagen on Rosen's forehead, sucking the 10 tails into it. Rosen is not the 10 tails Jinchuriki, but uses the Magatama Tensagen as the carrier of the 10 tails. There are advantages and disadvantages to this. The disadvantage is that if Rosen does not activate the reincarnation eye mode, the power of the 10 tails cannot be used. And there are many benefits. The 10 tails can be closed or released. And the 10 tails can continue to promote the evolution of Magatama Sengen. Rosen believes that Magatama Sengen is definitely not the end. Rosen released the 10 tails again and transformed into the form of a sacred tree. The 4 shadow demons' 3 pairs of reincarnation eyes and 1 pair of pure eyes have also completed their evolution. Jingyan's ability is called the Time Break Domain. The Time Break Domain has 3 abilities: time suspension, time acceleration, and time retrieval. The 3 pairs of reincarnation eyes also have 3 basic eye techniques: Shinra Tianzhong, Wanxiang Tianyan, and Samsara Innate Technique. At the same time, the 3 pairs of Samsara eyes have also evolved and derived their own special abilities. The Magatama reincarnation eye on Rosen's forehead possesses the basic eye technique of the reincarnation eye, and also possesses the special eye technique, Da Luo Tian. The next day, Rosen found Alicia. Alicia, I have evolved the sacred tree. Next, I will take the sacred tree away and go to all continents in the world to eliminate zombies on each continent. Teacher, will you come back? Probably. After all, I still need to get the final authority of the Red Queen. Rosen said. Teacher, do you need an assistant? No need, no one else can help with this kind of thing. It doesn't matter whether you take people with you or not. After all, the main task of eliminating zombies is to complete the sacred tree. Others helped eliminate a few zombies, which had no real significance. Teacher, do you need at least one person who can help you fly the plane? Rosen thought for a while and realized that he really couldn't fly a plane. In the end, they agreed to let Alice, James and Kaplan work together with Rosen. Although they can't help much, some chores can still be entrusted to them. Rosen, Alice, James and Kaplan arrived at the airport. Nowadays, most of the aircraft have been vacant, and now all the aircraft parked at the airport are umbrella company aircraft. Luo, can I learn those magic tricks from you? Yes, if you can let me master all your computer knowledge, then I will also teach you magic. Everyone got on the aircraft, with Alice and James as the main pilot and co-pilot. They had been outside for many years and learned a little bit about everything, including flying this kind of aircraft. Before the aircraft took off, a missile dragged the tail flames and roared towards the aircraft from a distance. Boom! In an instant, the entire aircraft was surrounded by flames. At the same time, Isaac walked out, followed by thousands of improved white Jew zombies. Isaac stared closely at the aircraft that was burned by the flames, and his breathing became rapid. This assassination was carefully planned by him, but he was not sure whether Rosen could survive the attack of this tactical missile. At this moment, Leon was suddenly attracted by some kind of force, and continued to shrink and rotate toward the cabin, and was eventually completely extinguished. Immediately, Rosen led Alice, James and Kaplan out of the scrapped aircraft. Isaac's heart skipped a beat. As expected, it was not that easy to kill Rosen. Drive, Isaac, should we start fighting now, or do you want to explain first? Rosen looked at Isaac with a smile. Mr. Luo, I would like to ask you to donate some body tissue to contribute to scientific progress. Isaac also looked at Rosen with a smile. Rosen glanced at the white zombie behind Isaac. Okay, you're going to take out all my money. After all, the target is Mr. Luo, no matter how cautious you are. Isaac waved his hand, and all the white zombies suddenly attacked Rosen. Rosen looked at these white zombies and could clearly see that these white zombies were stronger. Ordinary white zombies have the shape of ordinary people, but Isaac's white zombies are all 3 meters tall, with a black air coming from their bodies, and their skin is gray-brown. A white zombie raised its hand and waved its arm towards Rosen in the air. A long bone whip extended from the white zombie's arm. There were many hooks on this long bone whip. Oh, when Rosen saw this scene, a smile appeared on his face. This is the corpse vein of the Taketori clan. Unexpectedly, Isaac's technology was so strong that he actually extracted the corpse vein gene and applied it to the white Zetsu zombies. At this moment, a black shadow rose under Rosen's feet. When Isaac saw this scene, he immediately took a few steps back and retreated to the rear of the Baiju zombies. This time it was Gluttony who took action, and there was an eternal kaleidoscope in Gluttony's eyes. Gluttony opened his mouth and sucked in, and dozens of zombies were directly swallowed by Gluttony. I'm hungry. I want more. I want more. Kaleidoscope ability of Gluttony, Tengu eats the sun. After devouring those white Zetsu zombies, black bone spurs sprouted from Gluttony's body, just like the Taketori clan activated their corpse bone veins. The faces of everyone present were filled with horror. Is this a demon? Isaac's face turned pale. Kill him. Kill him. The white zombies rushed towards Gluttony one after another, but Gluttony, as a shadow demon, could not be hurt by any physical attacks. Gluttony is still a group of children, sucking away dozens of white Zetsu zombies with just one mouthful. Soon, more than 1,000 Baiju zombies were devoured. Drive Isaac, do you have any other backup plans? If you just rely on these white zombies, I'm afraid I will be very disappointed. Isaac's eyes suddenly became firm and he stared at Rosen. Do you think you won? Please me, Rosen said, spreading his hands. Isaac tore open his clothes, revealing his patchwork body. Then his body began to flash with arcs of electricity. Rosen raised his head slightly, feeling very much like Lan Dun. The next moment, Isaac burst out with supersonic explosive power and appeared in front of Rosen. Immediately afterwards, Isaac's arm turned into a metal blade and chopped off Rosen's head. Steel escape. Rosen raised his finger and flicked it through the air. The blade turned into Isaac's arm, instantly shattered, and Isaac himself was also blown away. Drive Isaac, I am very disappointed that you are just going to challenge me at this level. Dr. Isaac propped up his body and raised his head. A sinister smile suddenly appeared on his face. Mr. Luo, do you think what you saw is everything? Oh, then I really have to wait and see. At this moment, thousands of Dr. Isaacs appeared in front. You see, this is what I have prepared carefully over the years, a legion that belongs entirely to me. We are one. Can you defeat me? Can you defeat all clones? The Isaac in front of him is just one of the clones. That's why he could attack Rosen unscrupulously. As for Isaac's clone army, each one has been transformed, and all possess Lan Dun and Steel Dun. Rosen couldn't help but clapped his hands. It's amazing. I didn't expect that under my nose, you would actually prepare such a huge trap. This is the power of technology. Even if you have magic that is completely independent of technology, you can't defeat me. The faces of Alice and others became extremely solemn, and they all looked at Rosen. I don't know if technology can defeat me, but at least not now, and not you. Rosen said. Don't you want to see how I will fight against your clone army? Then I will also let you see mine strength. Rosen raised his arm and pulled hard towards the sky. 6 paths. Heavenly obstacle junction. Huge amounts of shadow suddenly enveloped the entire airport. The army of Isaac clones all raised their heads and looked at the sky. Alice, James and Kaplan also opened their mouths wide, and their eyes almost fell off. At this moment, everyone almost forgot to breathe. That was a supergiant meteorite with a diameter of more than 20 kilometers. Rosen released a burst of energy from his body, entangling Alice, James and Kaplan, and immediately rose into the sky, leaving the scope of the Tianju Junction. Rumble. The moment the meteorite fell, the sky collapsed, and the terrifying impact was like a nuclear bomb with an equivalent of 100 million tons exploding. All Isaac's clones were annihilated the moment the meteorite hit the ground. Any carbon-based creature is like an ant in the face of this destructive power. Rosen took Alice, James and Kaplan to the top of the meteorite. Because the speed of falling to the ground is not very fast, the destructive power is still relatively limited. But even so, Alice, James and Kaplan were still shocked beyond measure. Only at this moment can they understand Rosen's true strength. As a magician, it makes sense to be able to summon meteorites, right? Reasonable. The three of them nodded in response. Half an hour later, an aircraft appeared above everyone's heads. This aircraft was sent by Alicia. In the next 3 years, this aircraft accompanied them on their journey to the 5 continents of the Earth. The number of zombies devoured by the 10 tails reached 8 billion, making it more and more powerful. If there is still an Otsutsuki clan at this time, they can directly let the 10 tails bear the second sacred tree fruit. In the divine tree form, the 10 tails reaches a height of 200,000 meters and a diameter of 1,000 meters, while in the 10 tails form, it reaches 50,000 meters. The 10 tails in the Naruto world are only 2,000 meters long in their complete form, which is completely incomparable to Rosen's 10 tails. It can be said that Rosen's 10 tails almost swallowed up the entire world. Alicia's research team also developed the perfect antidote for the T-virus. It's said to be an antidote, but it's actually a T-virus killer. As long as it is hit directly on the ground and the antidote is allowed to circulate through the air, all T-viruses on the entire planet, as well as those infected with the T-virus, will die. In the original plot, the perfect antidote was also developed 10 years after the end of the world. This is also Rosen's 10th year in the world of Resident Evil. When Alicia smashed the container containing the perfect antidote to the ground, the remaining zombies on the American continent began to fall in droves. As time went by, as the perfect antidote spread around the world, more and more zombies fell down, and within a month, the zombies in the world completely disappeared. Even the T-virus disappeared, and the survivors walked out of their shelters and fortresses, and out of their hiding places. It's over. Yeah, it's over. Rosen looked at Raccoon City, which had regained its vitality. Rosen and Alicia stood at the top of the tower of the sacred tree in Raccoon City. This building is a newly built tallest building in the world. It was also built to commemorate the sacred tree. After all, to the current residents of Raccoon City, the sacred tree is like an angel descending from the sky to save the world. Especially the sacred tree appeared silently and disappeared silently. Most people have become believers in the sacred tree. This is the scroll I prepared for you. It contains 1,000 magics. Rosen threw a scroll to Alicia. Teacher, about 3 years ago. Let the past matter pass by. Rosen and Alicia both understood that Alicia had contributed to Isaac's betrayal. It was true that Alicia respected Rosen, but no one likes a superior god. Rosen knew, or had guessed. To say that I don't care at all would be a lie. And he is leaving this world soon, so there is no need to cause further trouble. After parting with Alicia, Rosen met several of his friends. Another 100 tons of gold, 10,000 tons of silver, and a large number of ancient Chinese books were prepared. These books were prepared by Rosen for his son. Return to the original world. Returning, settlement begins. Mission 1. Kill 8 billion zombies. Mission 2. Kill 185 Umbrella executives. Mission 3. Clean up 1388 city zombies. Task 4. Inject T-virus and persist for 85 hours. Task 5. Fight against mutant infected people 10-20 times. Settlement is over. Reward. Physical strength is doubled on the current basis, and light escape evolves to the blood succession snare level. Rosen immediately felt the change in his physique. Originally, his physique was already strong enough, but now it was doubled. With this strength, Rosen even felt that he could kill Senju Hashirama with one punch. Also, after light escape advanced to blood succession snare, it was no longer a skill, but an instinct carved into the bone marrow. The force value has been increased from 3 million to 4 million, but the lifespan is still 1,000 years, which has not been improved. Rosen estimated that if he wanted to improve in the future, he would have to improve his life level. Host. Rosen. Force value. 4 million. Remaining life. 1,000. Physique. Uzumaki Fairy Human Body. Chi Training. Jingjae Chi Innate. Magic. Magic Refining. Shadow Demon. Spiritual Search. Amenquis Evil Magic. Ninjutsu. Secret Shadow Technique. Flying Thor Technique. Multiple Shadow Duplication. Yin Healing and Injury Destruction. Palm Immortal Technique. Chakra Scalpel. King Kong Blockade. 4 Elephants Seal. Unparalleled Strange Power. Comprehensive Skill. Light Escape. Time and Space Points. 155, 100 points deducted, can travel through time and space once. Back in Luogia village, the family was still the same as before, and nothing happened because of Rosen's trip. However, a new county official came to Kaiyuan County. At present, the time is short, and we still don't know how good this county official is. This time, Rosen learned the lesson. Before returning, he saved enough time and space points to ensure that he would not have to worry about the next time travel. However, Rosen was still thinking about where to obtain space-time points. Wu Kui's side just caught a bunch of fish, and Maggie was the only one. As the future Ancient One mage, if her destiny is changed, even if it is just a small change, there should be considerable fluctuations in the future. After staying at home for less than half a year, Rosen ran to the border of Tibetan areas. First, they came to Maggie's former village, only to find that Maggie was no longer at home. Then we looked for Maggie in the Himalayas. However, the Himalayas are very large, stretching for more than 2,000 kilometers and covering an area of nearly 600,000 square kilometers. What is the concept of 600,000 square kilometers? It is equivalent to the land area of 6 South Koreas. In such a large area, it is not easy to find Maggie. Rosen had climbed almost every mountain peak, but still could not find Maggie. And Maggie also has magic. If she wants to hide, almost no one can find her. Rosen suddenly thought that Maggie was not an Ancient One mage yet. She probably doesn't have the qualifications to become the Ancient One yet. She is probably traveling now. But where to find the Ancient One? Where is she now? In the Central Plains, or in the West? Rosen suddenly thought of a way. Why do I have to find Maggie? She can also come to him. There was a dark period in Europe that lasted for 900 years. From the 5th century to the end of the 14th century, the entire Europe was ruled and enslaved by the Holy See. At the same time, a large number of women were burned to death as witches, and the Black Death was also raging in Europe. Save me, save me. I'm not a witch. I'm not a witch. Rosen wore a bamboo hat and Mingren clothing that was completely different from Europeans. This was the first time Rosen saw the scene of burning a witch. Speaking of the woman tied to the cross, although she kept saying that she was not a witch, Rosen could feel the powerful black magic aura on her body. She was a peer. I curse you. Curse everyone present. The witch roared hysterically. Rosen had no intention of taking action at all. He could feel that the witch's magic power was not blocked. The moment the witch cursed, Rosen saw a huge amount of black ball appearing above the witch's head. But the civilians watching could not see the existence of the black ball. The black ball split into small black balls and then shot towards everyone. Rosen's body exuded a magic power that blocked the little black ball from his body. The witch, who was tied in the middle of the cross, noticed Rosen. The two looked at each other, then looked away. Rosen was curious as to why this witch had to be tied up by a group of civilians when she could break free on her own. The villagers chanted to burn the witch to death. Then a fire was thrown on the pile of wood at the witch's feet. Ah! The flames engulfed the witch, who screamed in the flames. I curse you! Curse you! Curse you! The witch shouted over and over again. Rumble! At this moment, a dark cloud appeared in the sky, thunder roared, the world seemed to be plunged into darkness, and soon it started to rain heavily. The fire was extinguished, and at this moment, a humanoid creature crawled out of the charcoal fire. It was the witch who was burned and blackened all over. The witch crawled like a lizard, with only those blood-red eyes full of resentment and gloom. Even the rain could not wash away the burns on her body. The villagers were so frightened that they backed away, and no one dared to step forward. I am, ha, I am. The witch stood up and suddenly laughed wildly. Betrayal, hatred, death, despair, fear, madness, cruelty, it is such a wonderful music. The black energy spread on the witch's body. The witch ignored the frightened villagers and walked out of the village step by step. The villagers did not dare to stop the witch's steps. The ground where the witch stepped left black footprints, and the plants around the black footprints withered one after another. Rosen followed the witch into the woods. The witch then stopped and said, Oriental, why are you following me? I'm just curious about what you were doing just now. Didn't you see that I am practicing black magic, the 7 notes of hell? The witch looked at Rosen. What about you? Why are you following me? I have just arrived in Europe and need a guide. Where do you want to go? I don't have a definite direction. I just want to experience the cultural characteristics of Europe. You were really brave to walk with the Black Witch. The witch's body was filled with black aura. At this moment, the 4 shadow demons stood up in Rosen's shadow, and the 4 shadow demons' reincarnation eyes and pure eyes looked at the Black Witch at the same time. The Black Witch took a few steps back and looked at Rosen in horror. Why do a few shadow demons have such terrifying auras? The Black Witch looked at Rosen in surprise. Shadow demon is just a very low-level product of black magic. In most cases, shadow demon can only be used as a means of investigation. If it were to deal with a mage, shadow demon would only be tortured. Therefore, most black magicians are unwilling to practice the secret method of shadow magic. But the 4 shadow demons in front of her made Janu's heart palpitate. Are you sure you want to start a war with me? Rosen narrowed his eyes and looked at the Black Witch. Ha ha, I'm just joking with you. Maleficent's face-changing speed is amazing. My name is Alice. Oh, is your name also Alice? Rosen was a little surprised that the Black Witch in front of him was also named Alice. Then Rosen walked with Alice for a few days. They were now in a small town in Norway, and here they saw the gorgeous aurora. This was Rosen's first time seeing such a gorgeous spectacle, but he was used to it by the locals. Rosen marveled at the magic of nature, while Alice was a little careless. Have you never seen the aurora in the east? There is also one in the far north of my Ming dynasty, but I have never been there. Rosen answered frankly. What are you doing in Europe? Nothing, traveling, Rosen said calmly. At this time, Rosen heard the residents of the town discussing that there was a magical ancient tree outside the town. As long as you get close to the ancient tree, you can be cured of any disease. Rosen immediately became interested, and remembered that in his previous life, the shield agent he had seen had discovered an Asgard scepter in Norway, and that scepter could give ordinary people powerful powers. And the Asgard scepter was found in an ancient tree. Let's go see the ancient tree outside the town, Rosen said. When the two came outside the town, they saw a tall ancient tree. There were many fruits placed around the ancient tree, which seemed to be dedicated to the ancient tree by the townspeople. Rosen felt that this ancient tree was indeed emitting some kind of energy. And this was not magic, but a very special kind of energy. Rosen suddenly noticed that the face of Alice beside him had become distorted and crazy. Alice. Alice suddenly turned to look at Rosen, stared at Rosen with her blood-red eyes, and activated black magic without warning. 7 notes of hell, pain. Rosen immediately took a few steps back, but was still attacked by Alice's magic. In an instant, Rosen felt a splitting headache. Rosen was quite annoyed. Shinra Tianzhong. Bang! Alice was instantly knocked out by huge amounts of repulsive force, hit the trunk of an ancient tree heavily, and then fell to the ground. It was also hit like this, and the ancient tree was also cracked, revealing a silver-white stick hidden in the ancient tree. This stick was engraved with many complex and obscure lines. Rosen came to the ancient tree, reached out and grabbed the stick, and pulled it out of the ancient tree with force. At this moment, a blond man came from not far away. Rosen looked at the blond man, who exuded the same aura as the stick. Rosen's eyes narrowed. If there were no accidents, he should be an Asgard warrior. He stayed on Earth on purpose. This stick was his weapon, and it was divided into 3 parts. This is not a good thing for you, the blond man said, standing a few meters away. I know that he will expand my inner desires several times, Rosen said. However, Rosen is a black magician, and controlling desires is not a problem for him at all. What's more, this stick has almost no blessing for Rosen, so its impact on Rosen's desires is also very limited. It's like a rich man holding a fire stick. The fire stick keeps echoing in his mind, possessing it, possessing it. Rosen probably has this mentality at the moment. Rosen was simply curious. The blond man looked at Rosen and found that Rosen was really not affected by the stick. Who are you? I am a mage, Rosen said. Asgardian, do you know how to get to Asgard? How do you know me? As a mage, it makes sense to know a little bit about prophecy. Then what are you doing in Asgard? I heard that Frigga is the first magic god in Asgard. I hope to learn Asgard's magic, Rosen said calmly. Sorry, I can't help you. The blond man himself stayed on Earth secretly. How could he take the initiative to expose himself? Once he uses the communicator and contacts Heimdall, he will be forcibly recalled to Asgard and then punished. Forget it, you are not the only Asgardian on Earth anyway. Can you return this to me? The blonde man asked, looking at the stick in Rosen's hand. Sorry, I can't. Rosen shook his head. If the other party is willing to help, he doesn't mind selling well. It's a pity that the other party is not willing, so he naturally doesn't have to sell the other party's face. I can give you gold coins, a lot of gold coins. The blonde man's face was solemn, and he seemed a little anxious. Rosen tossed the stick. Sorry, I prefer collecting this stick to gold coins. The blonde man was a little angry and seemed to want to take action. At this moment, the sky suddenly became dense with dark clouds and there was lightning and thunder. When the blonde man saw this scene, his expression couldn't help but change, as if he had a premonition of something. Immediately afterwards, a colorful bridge fell from the sky and landed in the open space in front of the blonde man and Rosen. Rainbow Bridge. Rosen's face showed surprise. Looking at the stick in his hand again, I had a clear understanding in my heart. The stick turned out to be a signal transmitter. No wonder the Asgardian was so nervous. When he took out the stick, he had already sent a signal to Asgard. The rainbow left a circular scorch mark with a diameter of 3 meters in the open space. In the center of the circular scorch mark, half kneeling, was a tall man wearing a red cloak and silver armor. In this man's hand, he was holding a short-handled war hammer. Rosen's pupils suddenly shrank. This image, this weapon, this is the hammer god Thor. Amandel, you violated the laws of Asgard and stayed in Midgard for 100 years without permission. Now follow me back to Asgard and accept the judgment of the God King. The Asgardian named Amandel lowered his head, seemingly resigned to his fate. There is no way, he is just a low-level warrior in Asgard, and in front of him is Thor, the son of the God King, who has noble blood. Thor looked at Rosen. His eyes fell on the stick in Rosen's hand. He reached out and grabbed it, trying to take the stick away. Rosen immediately tightened his grip on the stick and tilted his head to look at Thor. This already belongs to me, rude outsider, Rosen said. Midgardians, this is something that belongs to Asgard. Thor's tone increased, which was already his most polite attitude. Thor has never been a good communicator, or his method of communication is a hammer. Rosen smiled, raised his hand and stretched out the stick. When Thor thought Rosen was going to return the stick to him, Rosen crushed the stick hard. Go back to Asgard. Thor's face turned angry. Rosen's smile remained the same, he just deliberately angered Thor. Since Maggie can't be found, brushing Thor's time and space points seems to be a good choice. Thor suddenly smashed Thor's hammer against Rosen. Rosen sidled aside to avoid Thor's hammer, and at the same time reached out to grab the handle of the hammer. However, an unparalleled force directly pulled Rosen and flew backwards. Bang! Rosen was dragged to the ground by Thor's hammer in embarrassment. Thor's hammer suddenly stopped and slammed down towards Rosen on the ground. Rosen no longer dared to despise Thor's hammer. He originally wanted to try to see if Thor's hammer really could not be picked up by anyone except the destined person, as in the original plot. Now it seems that it is indeed true. Unless you fight with absolute strength, it is absolutely impossible to pick up Thor's hammer. Rosen rolled to avoid Thor's hammer. I haven't been this embarrassed for a long time. Thor stretched out his hand, and Thor's hammer returned to his hand, with a fierce look in his eyes. Those who offend the gods need to pay the price. A god? I haven't tried to beat up a god yet. Strange power. A low pressure instantly formed around Rosen's body. He kicked his feet suddenly and the ground was crushed to pieces. Rosen hit Thor like a cannonball. Thor was knocked back more than 10 meters, leaving 2 ravines on the ground with his feet. Rosen was a little surprised. After being injected with the T-virus, his current physique was 100 times that of an ordinary person. After eating the fruit of the sacred tree and completing the blood succession snare, his physical strength was at least 300 times stronger. After returning from the world of biohazard, his physical strength was doubled. In other words, Rosen's physique is at least 600 times that of an ordinary person. Now this punch only knocked Thor back more than 10 meters. The physique of this Asgard Protoss is really abnormal. Thor was also a little surprised that a group of Midgard people could actually repel him. However, Thor also saw the desire to hunt and rushed towards Rosen. He picked up the hammer and smashed it towards Rosen. Rosen avoided Thor's blow and raised his foot to kick Thor away. Thor has extremely rich combat experience. While being kicked away, he also hit Rosen in the chest with a hammer. Rosen touched his chest, it hurt. Thor also rubbed his chest, he was also in pain. The next moment, both of them stared at each other and rushed towards each other. This kind of fist-to-flesh fight made the battle between the two sides become fierce. Thor can't take any advantage in such a battle. Rosen felt that he had a slight advantage, but it was not obvious. Thor spat out bloody spit and raised Thor's hammer high. The thunder in the sky gathered on Thor's hammer, and Thor seemed to be charged with energy, and the power in his body continued to increase. Thor pointed Thor's hammer at Rosen, and a violent force of thunder bombarded Rosen's body. Rosen was directly blasted away, and his chest was bloody and bloody. Puff! Rosen vomited blood and stood up again. Now do you understand the gap between mortals and gods? Thor looked at Rosen with proud eyes. In his opinion, he has won the battle, and the next step is to end the battle. Rosen's chest injury is recovering quickly. Thor once again activated the power of thunder, and the violent electric arc blasted towards Rosen. Rosen's body suddenly turned into a point of light and disappeared in front of Thor. The next moment, the points of light gathered above Thor's head and regained Rosen's figure. Light escape. Elementalization. This is a skill that Rosen mastered after Rosen's light escape was upgraded to the blood snare level. It has the same ability as the shining fruit, elementalization. Thor immediately sensed danger and looked up to see Rosen appearing above his head. Have you ever been kicked by a light? Thor's scalp was numb and he wanted to avoid it, but it was too late. Rosen's foot was covered in golden light and he suddenly kicked Thor in the face. Boom, boom. Thor stood up again in embarrassment, his injury was not serious. Rosen's eyes narrowed slightly. Thor's physical strength was slightly lower than his own, but his defense was amazing. He just hit 60% of his strength and kicked at the speed of light. Thor took it with his face, but it only slightly broke his skin. Putting aside everything else, he is really thick-skinned. Die! Thor raged. Thor's hammer burst out with terrifying arcs of electricity and bombarded Rosen randomly. Yada mirror. Rosen folded his hands and shot countless light balls towards Thor. Boom boom boom. The violent energy was vented wantonly, with white arcs and golden balls of light constantly intertwined. The energy released by catharsis almost changes the terrain. Finally, the arc stopped. Thor was covered in scars, and Rosen was not much better. Many parts of his body were scorched black by the thunder. Thor's defense is strong, but Rosen's recovery is stronger. Thor knelt on one knee, pressing Thor's hammer against his body, and stared at Rosen with extremely shocked and angry eyes. Rosen walked towards Thor, his injuries healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The next moment Thor stood up again and rushed towards Rosen with Thor's hammer. Shinra Tianzhong. Thor directly hit the repulsion force and was knocked away. But before he could land, Rosen grabbed him from the air again, and all things were drawn from the sky. Thor was pulled back by gravity again, and Rosen pointed his finger at Thor who was being pulled over. Light escape. Laser. Call out. The laser instantly penetrated Thor's chest, and continued to shoot forward, hitting the hillside 1,000 meters away. There was only a loud noise, and the hillside was shattered, leaving a huge amount of landslide hole. Thor spit out a mouthful of blood and finally fell to the ground unable to stand. Rosen stepped forward and lifted Thor's hair, stretched out his fingers and dug into the bloody hole in Thor's chest. Ah, God, you are so weak. However, after humiliating Thor, Rosen still threw Thor to the ground. He can't beat God King Odin now. He can't fight him at most, and he's killed 7 times in 3 minutes. If Thor is missing even one part, it is estimated that God King Odin will show up in person to explain. Get 50 time and space points. When Rosen saw the improvement of the system, a look of satisfaction finally appeared on his face. Even if Maggie is not found on this trip, at least he will have a guaranteed income. Alice was found buried under rubble. Alice was lucky not to be killed in the aftermath of the battle between Rosen and Thor. Looking at Amandel from a distance, Amandel swallowed. He didn't expect this Midgard man to be so terrifying, pressing the son of the God King to the ground and rubbing him. When Alice woke up, it was already 3 days later. Although she did not participate in the battle between Rosen and Thor, she was seriously injured in the aftermath of the battle while she was in a coma. Alice found herself tied up into a dumpling, and her whole body hurt terribly. Do you remember what happened? Alice thought for a while and had a vague impression. Did I take action against you? Your 7 notes of hell are really powerful. What Rosen said was true. If Alice hadn't been too weak, Rosen would have suffered a big loss when she took action. Alice only felt that Rosen was mocking her. She was the first to activate the 7 notes of hell, but did not get the desired effect. If it were an ordinary enemy, he would most likely become an idiot when hit by the 7 notes of hell, but Rosen was only mentally shocked. In fact, Alice's attack was not without effect. At that moment, Rosen really felt like his brain was going to explode. If we talk about magic attainments alone, Rosen is not that high, and even now he is at the entry level. That is to say, in terms of mental power, the Sharingan advanced through Amenquiz's evil method made Rosen's mental power different from that of ordinary people. It can even be said to be far superior to ordinary people, which prevented his brain from exploding. It took Alice half a month to recover. Rosen and Alice traveled through various European countries and came to England. Along the way, Alice kept asking Rosen about his destination, but Rosen remained silent. Today's London is a dark, filthy place where residents are numb and desperate. Like the dark clouds hanging over London. We are still in the Dark Ages in Europe, and the whole of England is still under the control of the Holy See. The Holy See's rule over European countries has also reached a high voltage line. It will not be long before various countries will begin to rebel against the Holy See. At the same time, the Renaissance is rising, and the age of discovery is also rising. But excluding now, when Rosen was approaching London, he felt the fog shrouding London. It was not caused by the natural environment, but by dark power. At the same time, the magic power in Rosen's body was slowly growing. At this moment, a man and a woman blocked the way of Rosen and Alice. The bodies of this pair of men and women both exude a powerful and rich aura of black magic, and at the same time, there are purple energy arcs beating on their bodies. If you look at magic strength alone, the strength of the man and woman in front of you is higher than Rosen and Alice. 2 of you, are you also here to pursue the true meaning of darkness? The man is tall and has brown hair, but there is a violence and madness hidden in his eyes. The woman is also tall and extremely beautiful. Her hair is purple, her lips are also dyed purple, and she is wearing a black dress, which highlights her proud figure. That's right, Rosen nodded, although he didn't know what the situation was. But since the other party took the initiative to stand up, he would follow suit. It's just that everyone is a black magician, so guarding against each other is a must. When Rosen took off his hat, he discovered that Rosen actually had an oriental face. Are you an oriental? Is there black magic in the East too? My name is Rosen, and this is my friend, Alice. Rosen briefly introduced himself and Alice. I am Omar, and this is my brother, Domu. Rosen's eyes narrowed slightly. Omar. Domu. These brothers and sisters are the masters of the dark dimension. Since they were these black-hearted brothers and sisters, they definitely did not invite them to discuss some dark magic knowledge. As we all know, the 3 major tricks of the dark system are sacrifice, control, and body seizing. No matter what their purpose is, they basically cannot escape these 3 ways. Walking all the way into London, Omar and Domu took Rosen and Alice to the headquarters of the Dark Society. I have to say that this place is a very classic gathering place for villains. The air was filled with the rotten smell of corpses, but for Rosen, who had returned from the world of Resident Evil, it was still acceptable. The black magicians in the headquarters of the Dark Society are all crazy and evil. After living here for a few days, Rosen got to know 3 lunatics. Knock knock knock. There was a knock on Rosen's door. When he opened the door, Rosen saw the madman next door, Deccan, standing outside the door. He has no hair all over his body, his skin is pale, his eyes have a pair of panda eyes, and his whole person seems to be immersed in negative emotions. Rosen felt like he was like Voldemort, but if Deccan was compared with Voldemort, Deccan was obviously more terrifying. Luo, do me a favor. Rosen followed Deccan to the next door. In Deccan's room, there are some bottles and jars. What do you need me to do? I plan to transform my soul. Deccan said, summoning 2 black souls. These 2 souls are somewhat similar to Deccan and should be related to him. These are my two brothers. I lost them years ago, so my plan is to integrate them with my soul. They also support my plan. However, in the process of transforming the soul, it will definitely attract the Soul Eater, so I need you to help me stop the Soul Eater." "What is the Soul Eater?" Rosen asked curiously. "It's a kind of low-level demon. They like to devour human souls." "A low-level devil. I will try my best, my friend." Rosen also wanted to see what the devil looked like. Rosen didn't know exactly what he was going to do, so he kept waiting and watching Dakin integrate the souls of his two brothers. After an hour of integration, Dakin's soul became 3 heads and 6 arms. It can only be said that this is very black magic. At this moment, Dakin's soul suddenly emitted a cool black gas. Then the black gas formed a black hole on the ground. More than a dozen demons emerged from the black hole. This was the first time Rosen saw demons. These demons have no facial features, tall and thin bodies, slender limbs, and a pair of hook-shaped arms. "Help me destroy these soul-eating demons." Dakin immediately shouted anxiously when he saw these demons. At this moment, Dakin is in soul form and is restrained by these soul-eating demons. The dozen soul-eating demons glanced left and right and immediately surrounded Rosen. Rosen glanced at the dozen soul-devouring demons. The gluttonous shadow demon suddenly appeared and swallowed all the soul-devouring demons in one bite. Weak, very weak. These soul-eating demons are very, very weak, probably at the level of juvenile lickers. Rosen frowned slightly. Dakin shouldn't be able to deal with just a few soul-eating demons. Rosen looked at Dakin with questioning eyes. Dakin is currently using his magic power to bind the spirits of his two brothers. Dark magic is bridging the spirits of Dakin and the two brothers. This excess is very painful, and all 3 brothers are screaming in pain. At this moment, another soul-eating demon emerged from the black hole on the ground. However, the size of the soul-eating demon in front of him was obviously several times larger than the previous dozen soul-eating demons, and it grew longer on his head. It has a pair of winding horns, and its arms are no longer hook-shaped, but have 3 fingers, holding a sickle in both hands. Is this also the Soul Eater? Gluttony's eyes condensed, and the eternal kaleidoscope opened. I saw Gluttony closing his palms, the lines on his eyes constantly rotating, opening his big mouth, and the Tengu eating the sun. The Soul Eater immediately pressed the scythe handle against the ground to resist the devouring suction of Gluttony. And his actions couldn't completely resist the suction of Gluttony's big mouth. At this moment, the Soul Eater suddenly raised his sickle and slashed towards Gluttony. As a magical creature, the Soul Eater has the ability to attack Gluttony. Gluttony's body was immediately covered with a layer of black armor, which was Susano's low-profile complete body. Although it is not as huge as its normal form, its defensive power is quite impressive. The Soul Eater's scythe struck the black armor. Gluttony was not injured, but the Soul Eater was knocked away. Gluttony took the opportunity to step forward, grabbed the Soul Eater demon's neck, and then bit the Soul Eater demon's neck. The ability of Tengu Eclipse is to permanently increase the upper limit of pupil power by devouring enemies. Dakin swallowed, wondering if he was frightened by Rosen's strength. But at the moment, his focus is still on integrating his soul. Soul-devouring demons continued to emerge from the black hole, and the strength of the soul-devouring demons became stronger and stronger, but they did not surpass the strength of Rosen, a shadow demon. After 3 hours, Dakin finally completed the soul integrate technique. "Thank you, Brother Luo, for your help. I will be there if you need me next time. Putting aside all the necessary matters, can you explain why you integrate souls, but these soul-eating demons all attack me?" At first, Rosen didn't notice it. But as time went by, more and more soul eaters appeared, and Rosen finally realized something was wrong. The protagonist this time should be Dakin, and the soul eater is also looking for Dakin. But every time the soul eater appears, his first target is himself, so the secrets behind this are worth studying. Dakin has just completed the soul integrate technique at this moment, and his condition is not good. Moreover, Rosen can easily deal with so many soul-eating demons. Even when he is in the best condition, he may not be able to defeat Rosen. Dakin took out a roll of parchment and handed it to Rosen. The meaning is obvious. You have prepared everything to make amends, and you should not pursue the remaining matters. Rosen took the parchment and opened it, which contained the method of making the demon soul. Dakin said that it was integrating the souls of the two brothers, which was actually the process of transforming his own soul into a demon soul. At the same time, the consequences of creating the demon soul were also recorded on the parchment. Once you start making demon souls, you will attract the covetousness of the soul eater. However, you can sacrifice other people's souls to the soul eater through sacrifice. Soul-eating demons have no facial features, so they cannot see things. There is also a way to mislead soul-eating demons. Dakin accidentally left the scent of his soul to Rosen, thus misleading the soul eater. Rosen gave up his plan to settle the score with Dakin. On the one hand, he had accepted the black magic and read its contents. The world of black magic is all about fair dealing. If you still refuse to give up, you may fall into Dakin's other plan. After Rosen's contact with this group of black magicians in the past few days, he also deeply understood the fact that all black magicians cannot be trusted. Every black magician is scheming against each other. Even Rosen uses Amenquis's evil method to steal the spiritual power of black magicians every day. Every black magician has considerable mental power, so even if it is only a small part of the mental power, it will be a considerable amount of mental power. And here, Rosen is completely stealing blatantly. Because everyone here is suspected, no one can pinpoint who stole their spiritual power. Everyone here is a suspect, everyone is a dirty and evil black magician. In the headquarters of the Dark Society, black magicians are attacked and killed every day. Death is the main theme here. In the past few days, Rosen felt that the dark fog shrouding London had become thicker. As for the brother and sister Omar and Domu who formed the Dark Society, they go out early and come back late every day. Rosen had reason to suspect that they were brewing some kind of conspiracy. Alice came back from the outside dusty, and Rosen asked, "Can you find any clues?" No, Omar and Duomu are very careful in their actions. They use magic to disguise themselves every time they go out. Alice shook her head. And they are very powerful. I don't dare to leave marks on them at all. Quote, there is no doubt about the strength of Domu and Omar. Even if they are not Dark Lords yet, they are still the strongest black magicians at this stage. We can't stay here anymore, we're leaving London. Rosen said. These two will be extremely dangerous in the future, and it is too dangerous to get involved with them. Alice didn't have any opinions, so she would do whatever Rosen said. The two of them left the Dark Society headquarters directly without saying hello to anyone. Before they even left London, the two felt they were being followed. Both of them are black magicians, so they just do it on the street regardless of the influence. Alice directly activated the 7 notes of hell. Ah! There was a scream from behind, and Rosen turned around to see a fat Asian man covering his head and falling to the ground wailing. 4 black shadows suddenly spread out from the ground, spreading to the fat man's feet, dragging the fat man in the direction of Rosen and Alice. At this moment, a white-haired woman wearing a robe descended from the sky holding a long sword. The white-haired woman's long sword suddenly slashed towards the 4 shadow demons on the ground. Upon seeing this, Rosen immediately controlled the 4 shadow demons to disperse, and at the same time gave up dragging the fat man. When he looked at the white-haired woman again, his eyes were a little more shocked. Powerful. Rosen was shocked by the vastness of the magic power in this white-haired woman. The fat man immediately stood up and came behind the white-haired woman. Supreme Mage, I'm sorry that I couldn't complete your mission. The fat man bowed his head and apologized. It doesn't matter, they are not something you can deal with in the first place. The white-haired woman waved her hand. When Rosen heard the fat man calling the white-haired woman the Supreme Mage, his mind was buzzing. The white-haired woman tapped the tip of the sword gently on the ground, and the sword made a crisp sound. There was a look of fear on Alice's face, and in addition to fear, the look she looked at the white-haired woman also contained awe. Are you the Archmage Merlin? Rosen was a little surprised. Merlin, this is a legendary mage in English myths and legends. However, Merlin should have been close to 1,000 years since this era. Her most active time should have been the era of King Arthur. Unexpectedly, she is still alive now. Ms. Merlin, I am reporting to you the location of the Dark Society's headquarters. Rosen's smile was bright and sunny. Actually, I was sent by the church to lurk in the Dark Society, specifically to investigate the Dark Society's conspiracy. Merlin's face was still stern. The church. It's such a degenerate religion that it even tolerates a black magician like you. You misunderstood. In fact, I am a white magician. Rosen said with a smile. If you don't believe me, just look at it. Rosen stretched out his right hand, and then a golden sword condensed in his palm. No need to explain, the brilliance on the outside can't cover up the filth in your heart. Mei Lin has never been a mage who can be deceived by appearance. In her 1,000 years of career as a supreme mage, she has seen too many conspiracies and darkness. No matter how brilliant the golden sword in Rosen's hand was, it could not shake Mei Lin's heart. And Merlin knows every white magician, and she also knows every black magician. This is because she possesses a magical book called the Book of Omniscience. To say it is a book of omniscience is an exaggeration. But every new magician who appears in the world will appear in the Book of Omniscience. This book also includes Rosen, and Rosen is shown as a black magician in this book. Ding ding. The sword in Mei Lin's hand touched the ground again. Rosen immediately became alert. The person in front of him seemed to be the supreme mage. She couldn't do anything useless. Rosen suddenly stepped back, and the moment he stepped back, 2 birdcages appeared under his and Alice's feet. Alice was immediately enveloped by the birdcage. If Rosen had slowed down by another 0.1 second, he would have been enveloped by the birdcage. Mei Lin was also like a swift cheetah, suddenly approaching Rosen, and at the same time swung her sword to slash at Rosen's neck. She has been blessed by the sky, the earth, and the sea, possessing the speed of a cheetah, the strength of an elephant, the flying ability of a goshawk, the vigorous movements of a spiritual snake, and the swimming ability of a sea fish. Rosen raised his golden sword and held it in front of him to block Mei Lin's sword. Rosen took 1 step back, while Mei Lin took 3 steps back. Rosen was a little surprised that Merlin, the supreme mage, was so powerful and fast, almost as strong as the hammer god Thor. Mei Lin was equally surprised. After all, there were very few melee mages like her. She didn't expect that Rosen was also a melee mage. At this moment, Mei Lin took a deep breath, and a low pressure immediately formed around her body. Rosen raised his eyebrows, and Mei Lin's strength and speed increased again. The next moment, Mei Lin rushed towards Rosen again. The sword in her hand was strong and heavy, and she slashed at Rosen with one sword after another. There aren't many skills, just a lot of effort and miracles can happen. Rosen was shocked to find that his melee combat was actually suppressed. Hiss. Mei Lin knocked away Rosen's golden lightsaber again, and the blade suddenly pierced Rosen's chest. But in the next moment, Rosen's body suddenly turned into a point of light and dissipated, then regrouped more than 10 meters away. Rosen touched the blood hole on his chest. It seemed that his elemental transformation was not that effective in front of Mei Lin. Mei Lin's sword is very terrifying and has a certain hit effect. Rosen's face gradually turned cold, and the shadow under his feet began to shrink, and then merged with Rosen. Looks like it's time for a new Sorcerer Supreme. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.